That's right. It's HurriCon. Look at that. We have a logo and everything. How professional, right? Hi, everybody. Welcome to HurriCon. I am Rob Southgate with Southgate Media Group. I'm also, I'm representing Liz from Sphinx PR, who also is the one putting this on. She's the one that said, hey, let's do this a week ago. So let's all boo Liz. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, Liz. And we have some special guests with us today for our first panel. Our first panel that we're doing. Oh, by the way, we are streaming on Twitch at Southgate Media Group. We are streaming on Facebook at the Southgate Media Group page. And actually, if I take a moment, I will actually stream it other places as well. Let me make that happen. We are also streaming on the Southgate Media Group YouTube page. If you want to donate, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a second after I share this. Okay, if you want to donate, 20% of donations that we gather through Twitch are going to be going to beloved Asheville. We're trying to help out these people that have been so hurt by the hurricane. Canes, I guess we have multiple, plural on that. All the writers are correcting me now. We decided that this was a way that we could give back while doing something really cool. The motivation for doing HurriCon was actually, it became to give back, but it was really Liz. She was supposed to be speaking at San Diego Comic-Con. It was turning into an online panel event. And then people couldn't make it because of the hurricanes. And she was like, there are so many people that want to go that aren't going to get the relief of like having fun. And she said, hey, you know how to do this. Can we put something together really fast? And yeah, that was a week ago. So here we are. Once again, on Twitch, you can just hit the button and donate. If you want to get in conversation with us, we have the chat open on Twitch and on everywhere else. And I should be seeing it everywhere I go here. And I believe Liz is also manning everything, which is great. With me for panel one is The Pen is Mightier Than the Storm. I have with me some fantastic authors, and we are going to stick mainly in horror today because it's almost Halloween, right? So we're going to go horror. So I brought in, well, I hope it's showing in the direction I'm seeing it. Next to me is Sarah Cito. Sarah, you'll get to talk and tell people all about your stuff very shortly. We have Maria DeVivo. I'm not going to say it every time, but Maria, you get to talk soon. John Maly. John, I'm so excited to see you. I haven't talked to you since our interview. And Amanda Fasciano. So, yeah, right there. It's like that Brady Bunch thing, only I can't tell if everyone's seeing it the way we're seeing it. So what can you do? What happens if I do this? Oh, come on now. That's even better. We're going to go
up close and personal.
Yeah. Or I could use it as a shocking thing. We're saying something here and Amanda says something completely shocking. Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, no, I think we'll stick it this way. Yeah, her cat shows up. Cat. We have viewers too. And I see Liz is in there. Also, so that you guys know, we are also getting restreamed on the Penny for a Tale Twitch channel, which has over 20,000 followers. They're big supporters of things we do, and we've done some collaborating in the past. Very excited to have them with us, and we'll watch Twitch to see if anybody raids us or anything, which would be a lot of fun as well. Okay, so here we are. The Pen is Mightier Than the Storm. So what we're going to do in this panel, since I have you guys here, we're going to talk about writing. We're going to talk about horror. We're going to talk about you guys. I think the best way to start this out is we'll go in order. I want you to introduce yourself, tell a little something about yourself, and pimp your books. All right? Let's start with Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Cito. I am a Four Horsemen author from Southwest Florida. I write supernatural thrillers that take place in Lorien Hollow. town situated about an hour inland from Kentucky. Lots of monsters, lots of action. Think Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Game of Thrones in a modern day setting.
Excellent. And next to you, I think you're next to her. Yes, you are.
Yes, I am.
You're up,
Hi.
Maria.
Hi, I'm Maria DeVivo. I write also for Four Horsemen Publications, and I have 3 series right now out on the table. I write dark fantasy and horror because this is spooky season. My Dawn of the Blood Witch saga is a spicy, gruesome tale of witches and treachery. So yeah, that's me.
All right. Up next, let's go with John.
Hi guys, I'm John Maly. My most recent work is Juris Ex Machina, which is I've written a lot of different genres, but this particular one is a sci-fi legal thriller, and then it's got sort of this terrible interlude in the middle where they're in a massive city of the dead with cannibals and things. But the premise is that it's in the future, and there's AI controls the justice system, and it's a perfect system, and yet somehow someone gets falsely convicted of mass murder and sent away, and to figure out what's going on with that. And I'm also working on a horror short story, and then I'm working on a fantasy novel as well.
Excellent. And finally, Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda Fasciano. I write the Life After series. It's kind of an X-Files meets Ghost Adventures, but from the ghost perspective. You find out that there is a force that polices the other side so that the haunting spirits don't give away too much to the living. And as things do, things go sideways, and it goes from there. I have 5 books out, and I am starting the sister series to it next year.
Fantastic. All right. Yeah, let's give it up. I wish we could hear the crowd go wild, because at this point I'd get everybody to cheer for you. So all right, let's get into this a little bit, since we are talking horror and you're all horror authors. By the way, everybody here fabulous. I know you don't all know each other. I know 3 of you know each other, but John, you don't know the other 3. But now you are part of a posse, just so you know. So for you guys, and I think to start out with, rather than like calling people out, I think it's better to just have kind of open discussion. So we're going to try that. If it doesn't work, then we'll switch. But let's start out with, like, what got you into horror? What was like that impetus? It was like, yep, now's the thing. It's like I'm a teacher. I have to point at you, and this is what it happens in my class. I sit there and I'm like, okay, you're staring at me.
I know. We're all
Somebody
waiting
just
to make
jump in. Be brave. Be bold.
I'll make a move. So I like being scared. Like, my idea of having fun is not jumping out of a plane. It's watching The Exorcist in a dark room. You know, that is my level of adrenaline. So I love scaring others. In which case, you know, reading Fear Street and R.L. Stine really got me into horror. When I was growing up, I didn't know what I'd like to read until I found R.L. Stine's work. So those Fear Street novels and seeing that thriller pace for things, that is what drove me towards horror, for sure.
How about you, John?
You know, for me, I would say from a young age, I think horror was always kind of like the forbidden fruit as a genre. So if I got some sort of a book at the library and, you know, like Stephen King or something like that, and I would be reading it and thinking, like, man, if my parents knew it was in this book, there's no way they would be letting me read this. And yet there it was in the library. And same, you know, late at night, if you snuck back downstairs and turned the TV on, what could you watch as a kid on, you know, syndicated network television? And it would be horror movies, and that would be like the thing that you kind of had to sneak to watch. So I think it was always a very edgy genre for me, partly because I was like age inappropriate, but that's kind of just what got me immersed in it in the first place and made me start seeking it out.
You actually said something that I want to address with everybody. You can just raise your hands. How many were age inappropriate when you got into horror? Yeah, it happens. And it's funny, John. I think we talked about like watching these movies when I interviewed you on LA Chats, like as a kid. And what's really funny is when you said that, I just remembered another one on WGN or something. They would show the Night Gallery. Remember the Rod Serling? That was the scary one. And I remember staying up. I was way too little for that story where the woman has the choker on and her head falls off when you pull the choker.
That
but
show.
My God. That was your
so
show?
Terrifying. It's so terrifying. It comes on MeTV late at night. So I'll stay up and watch it even now. And I'm like, no. This is very creepy.
It is. Once again, not age appropriate. I'm probably 6, like sitting there watching on this little black and white TV. My God.
I'm 35 watching it in the dark and I'm scared. So
I'm not as scared at 56. It gets better. I'll tell you that, Sarah. How about you, Amanda? What was the starting point?
Well, my father kind of encouraged the age inappropriateness. He wanted a horror buddy to watch horror films with because my mother had absolutely no inclination to do so. And so at the age of 5, he sat me down to watch The Howling. And
at 5?
Talk about age inappropriate. And it went from there, like Night Gallery, that kind of stuff. We would have on at dinner. And like, because it was in syndication, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Twilight Zone, the old 50s movies. I'd like race home. They'd be on at 3:00 on whatever station in Northern Virginia it was. And, I'd watch the old Village of the Damned, The Thing, The Blob, all the black and white 1950s classics. And I also grew up in a haunted house. So that led me to stray more towards.
We're going to come back to that, Amanda. You're not getting by with just saying that. But yeah, was it? Now, did you watch the 4:30 movie? Was that a thing where you lived?
It was 3:00, but yeah, it was the after school. Yeah, it was just the after school movie that I would run home to watch and absolutely loved. Vincent Price is. Anyway.
Oh, I forgot about Vincent Price Week when they would show Pit and the Pendulum and Dr. Phibes. Heck yes.
The Raven, all the Edgar Allan Poe adaptations that Corman made, I love.
Yeah, it's another one. I bet if everybody raised their hand, it would be like, oh yeah, heck yeah, those were awesome. I was big on Ape Week. We could actually do the next panel just talking about Ape Week because obsessed. So yeah, it was the 4:30 movie. Then on Saturdays we had, I think John and I talked about this actually. There was a chunk on Saturdays, and they always showed like the really weird ones, like Gargoyles, and the other one that was my favorite was Billy the Kid Meets Dracula. Oh come on, yeah, Maria, come on, you have to know those, right?
No, I don't. No.
All right. I thought you were cool, but all right, Maria, what was the thing that got you into it? Where did it start?
Similarly, same kind of story. It's so funny. Like, it seems like we're all leading like the same childhood life. My mom took me to my first horror movie when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I don't know why she did this, like very weird, because my mom was not like a horror person per se. She took me to see Creepshow. And I was sitting in her lap, and I remember just like doing one of these and then looking up, and then doing one of these and then looking up. Like I was both horrified and fascinated at the same time. And I think that was the one defining moment, like that singular moment that like opened up like, oh, I want more. I know I'm interested in this and I shouldn't be. And it's really calling me, and it shouldn't be, but it is. And then my parents got HBO shortly thereafter, and
we were all corrupted at this point. I understand.
Yes. Tales from the Crypt Keeper, very age inappropriate. But I remember sitting there, in the dark, watching all that real little. And that was it for me. That one movie, Creepshow, that was it. I was, you know.
All right, what's the segment that you like best in Creepshow?
The one with the thing under the stairs and the
Oh
creep.
my God, that's the scariest one, right?
Yes. Yes.
That one is amazing. And like now you can actually see, like I was online and there were like pictures of the thing in the box. And as soon as you see it, you're like right back to that like young person going, oh my God, this is the most terrifying thing.
That was my first graphic novel too, was Creepshow. And
oh, really?
Yeah, the art was beautiful.
It was.
Read that. I still have it somewhere.
It's so interesting that like really Creepshow is his homage to, you know, Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror. Yet it's Stephen King. He created a new one that fit exactly in, but is its own unique voice.
Yep.
I love that. Yeah, I always liked that beginning too with the cockroaches. I thought that was creepy as hell. Yeah, I know. It was awful, right?
I don't do bugs.
So, see, I got a reaction. So, okay, now as far as being horror writers, like you guys are all getting along, we've got this common interest. Do you find that like right away you had a community of other horror fans, or was it like, wow, I'm the weird kid?
No, it's very much a community, if I can just jump in and do that. Maria said this at the last convention that me and Sarah were at, and that is that it is such a community. These are our people. They love the same weird stuff that we do. So it's been very much a welcoming sense of community that is really hard to find, because we're all the misfits. We're all the outcasts. We're the people who like the dark, scary stuff, who would run towards the noise, even though we know better. You know, it's just a wonderful sense of community.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like when you watch horror movies and your impulse is to go, get out of that house. You hear it said, get out, listen. But we're the ones that are still going to go, yeah, but
who is it?
I got to see what's going on in there. Maria, you were going to say something.
But just to kind of piggyback off what Amanda was saying, yes, we are a very strong, positive community for the dark matter. We found our people, but growing up, I was the freak. I was the outcast. And, you know, growing up was really hard because, you know, you have issues of bullying. And then now top it off, here I am, 9 years old in black nail polish and black lipstick. And the kids are like, what? You know, so that was kind of a lonely thing, you know, growing up. It wasn't until maybe like my late teenage years that I was like, no, screw everybody else. And this is who I am. And take me or leave me. And then that's when I really built up my real friendships and my real community.
There you go. Did you put on a Cure album and say, okay, I'm now going to wear black? Was that the moment? I'm older than you. It was the Cure for us. For you, it might have been something else.
Sure, yeah.
I think we were all goth before goth became a thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Did anyone else? I mean, because for me, I wasn't just a horror nerd. I'm older than you guys. So for me, it was like I was the first with like an Atari, and you got bullied for playing video games. And I was the first into horror, and you got bullied for horror. I had a Star Trek shirt. I got bullied for wearing a Star Trek shirt. Did everybody kind of experience that, or was it like John sitting here like, no, man, I was the one bullying for those things?
I'm only 6 years younger than you, so
you know. I mean, it was.
Yes,
it was a very strange time. Like, if you admitted you liked comic books, it was like a really nasty time.
Yeah.
So, all right, that just brought everybody down. So did everybody get to answer, like, as far as
John didn't?
Yeah, John, let's hear you about like community and how that was for you.
Well, it's interesting because I think in one sense, like, you know, if you're in 5th or 6th grade and, you know, you're like a early teenage boy, you're not going to feel marginalized for talking about a horror movie that you just saw. Like it's almost like a currency in that particular social group. But I will say that, you know, it was probably that forbidden fruit aspect. And then by the time I got my driver's license, I would totally go see lots of horror movies just like alone, because nobody else wanted to watch them. They wanted to watch like uplifting, summer blockbuster type movies. But I think, it's an interesting question as far as whether, horror is definitely a marginalized genre. I mean, like genre fiction in general is marginalized, and it's almost further marginalized. It's interesting to ask the question of whether that is because of that it's a very close knit group, or if it's more of like a correlation. I don't really know the answer to that.
Anybody have a thought? I don't have a thought on that. I mean, like, I suppose we could explore that, but does anyone have a thought? No? Yeah, actually, that's a great thought
It
experiment.
is a good
to
question.
sit and think about, chicken or the egg as far as that goes. Okay, John, you brought something else up then. You mentioned, like you had mentioned Creepshow before, Maria, and John, you were just mentioning, going out and seeing those. So this is an easy one. Not a lot of thought here. When you go back to your teenage years, number one horror movie, what was it for you? I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring. Reanimator changed my life.
The
And that's
Faculty.
going above The Thing and Return of the Living Dead and all the other stuff. Reanimator, I saw that and went, look at the gloriousness that happened here.
Yeah, mine was definitely The Faculty. Josh Hartnett.
Faculty.
Ooh, girl. The Faculty. I love that movie. It was so good. The soundtrack, amazing. It's like the prime 1998 teen Scream. Aside from Scream itself, that was a good one.
Okay, come on, you guys. You got to have one that was your big one. Yeah, do it, Maria.
Okay, so obviously, like, number one all time is the original Halloween, right? I mean, because you can't, like, but I think underneath that, for me personally, The Craft.
Really, witches? I'm so surprised. So The Craft. Now, did you like the remake?
No. Actually,
did.
I have to be honest. I didn't watch the whole thing from start to finish. It just, you don't mess with The Craft. So
I couldn't either. I started it, and it's kind of like that reimagining of Pet Sematary. Whew. I couldn't get through it, and I can get through anything.
Right. So disappointing.
Yeah. All right, Amanda.
While I'm with Maria, where my ultimate favorite is the original Halloween, I also have to go with one that may be a little off track. Dolls. And I don't know.
Oh my God. That has the scariest poster of all time.
Yes.
And I saw that as a kid. And of course, I had dolls. And it was just that whole different level of, do they come to life? What's going on, So that just put me in a totally different mindset as far as horror went, how something so innocent could be possibly so sinister.
Yeah. Yeah, I just interviewed somebody who said Magic. You guys remember Magic?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it's like Dolls, but it was a dummy, and it was a ventriloquist dummy that came to life. So I remember watching that when I was a kid on TV, and my neighbors were with me, and they were a couple of years younger. I swear to God, these kids had core meltdowns that I don't think even today they've recovered from. They were so terrified of that. If I had shown them Dolls, that would have been it. I would have been banned. It would have been terrible. All right, John, what's yours?
This maybe is not the most edgy response, but I think after all these years, it's still The Shining. And I think that's, I don't even know how much of that is the story versus the cinematography of it. And just every scene just feels so, like, sort of claustrophobic, like you want to get the hell out of there. Just the way every scene is shot. It's even when nothing's happening, it's really unsettling. And I think that kind of stuck with me. And I was at a Halloween party last night at this hotel, and there were these two women who were twins, and that was their costume, was the dresses of
the twins.
And
Sweet.
they kept standing next to each other, and you'd be like, sipping your drink, and you'd catch them out of the corner of your eye, and you'd be like, oh, geez. And it just kept happening again and again, and it was interesting to me that it was still unsettling after this many years.
John, were you riding a big wheel? Because that would make it even worse.
That would be amazing.
You're like, ooh, I've got a costume idea. Okay, we've got a couple of comments I want to address. Liz wrote on here. First of all, we were talking about Vincent Price. Vincent Price's daughter Victoria lives in Asheville, where we are doing where we're giving part of our funds to, which is unbelievable. Number two, she asked, who remembers Taboo magazine? Did you guys ever read Taboo? I didn't.
I did not.
I remember seeing it, but that wasn't one I read. I was an Omni guy, and I heavy metal, loved heavy metal. And then it was all the Starlog, famous monsters of Screenland, all that kind of stuff. I loved it. Oh, she wrote absolutely the first horror comic serial. So it looks like we're going to have to go to a used bookstore and find Taboo magazine. It's going to happen. So, okay, going to move on to another question for all of you guys. I always got to think about these. Let's get heady for a second. I mean, not like severed heady. Has being a horror writer taught you anything about yourself? Sarah was the first to nod yes. Let's hear it, Sarah.
Hi,
And Amanda,
my name is...
you nodded second, so you're going second, Amanda. Yes, go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Cito, and I am my protagonist in my novel. I am my protagonist. So I discovered through my writing how much of a hero I want to be. I discovered how brave I am, and I discovered my strength, where my strength lies, and I learned self-love as well as more love for other people through my writing. So
wow, excellent. Who wants to go next? Oh wait, Amanda, I called you out. You're going, Amanda.
Okay. I try to write things that discomfort me so that I can face them. So I think I've said before, a lot of Life After series deals with grief, what you leave behind, what holes the people you leave behind leave in you. So there is a lot of that, and that is the one emotion that I have the hardest time dealing with. So that has actually helped me work through that. Now, the whole bug thing, we'll get to that maybe. But as I go, I try to, and my poor main characters, because they suffer for this, I will throw things out that I find uncomfortable, that I sit there at the movies and go, oh, like that, and like the whole needle in an eyeball.
Oh,
so
nobody likes that.
Maria was like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, no, I try to face my fears through the writing, and hopefully I eke out a few people along the way.
Yeah, I think the other side of that coin, is it goes beyond just like write what you know, and it kind of goes to another level, which is that good horror, it needs to tap into like these subconscious visceral fears, and in order for you to write in a way that it really resonates with somebody, you have to like have that visceral fear at some level, and it needs to be something that you have, you've experienced in your nightmares. It can't be just something that you heard about. If you really want it to be completely visceral and like a truly immersive situation in the story.
Absolutely.
All right, who's next? Maria.
I think kind of being a horror author, right? And learning stuff about myself. I have no limits. Like I've learned that my mind is a very dark and twisted type of forest. And I'm willing to go pretty much anywhere. And when I don't go to that extreme, it's because I'm holding back because I don't want to freak my readers out as much as I freak myself out. There are scenes in some of my books that I have had to omit because they were just too disturbing, just even for myself. But I'm not disturbed. Like I'm always looking for that next like level of fear, and I can't get it. Like I feel like I'm so desensitized as a human being, and it's sad, but nothing scares me. Like, you know, Amanda, you were saying about the needle in the eyeball. Like I'm fine with that. Like throw anything at me, tell me any like really messed up scenario.
I know what you do for a day job. I know why you're not scared.
I'm actually gonna like follow that comment, Maria, with a very similar sentiment. A lot of you know the first sentence of my book, The Soundtrack to Your Scream, starts with, you know, her eye was taken out of her eye socket and her mouth was sewn shut, tongue missing. You know, the good stuff, lighthearted, ease the readers in.
Right.
So I too am always looking for that next level. And for me, because I think the horror that Maria works with and the horror that I work with are a little bit different. Hers is definitely more visceral than mine, I think. Like yours is very, very strong and very well put together. I do admire your writing quite a bit. It's very well put together. And you know, for me, getting that shock factor out of my readers is showing that dark side of humanity. So that's where I dive in as best I can. And I know you do too, Maria. And I think that's where we both are at, where we're trying to find that level of the darkness of humanity, because we see it every day.
Yes.
And being able to take that and put it into writing and capitalize on how scary humans are as opposed to the monsters we create, I think that says a lot about a horror author for sure. So Maria, I love you. Amanda, I also love you, John. And Rob, you know, I guess. I'm kidding.
I guess.
I love you, Rob.
Love.
I
I
guess.
love you, Rob.
Wow. Okay, John, you piggybacked off what Amanda said, but did you have an answer for yourself?
You know, I think what horror has kind of exposed to me is like my tastes in it have taught me that the types of horror that I like most are the ones that have like the situations where you're confronted with total irrationality. So like, you know, someone's walking down a hall and they see this thing out of the corner of their eye, and you as the viewer, you're like, what the hell was that? You know, like, and you can't even really put your finger on what you just saw. And then what's, you know, the most gratifying part of, you know, a movie about, you know, say like a haunted or house or possessed place or something is when the scientists show up with all their equipment. And that's like the cavalry has been called, and now we're actually sort of applying rationality to try to solve the problem. And of course, it's never that simple. Those guys never succeed at kicking anything out of a house.
No.
Like, I'm sure they make good money.
A bug crawling a pork chop across the counter. That's
Told
what
you
they
guys.
get. Yeah.
So that I don't know. I think that probably tells me something about myself and what I, you know, seek to kind of replicate if I'm writing a story that I would think was good if I were the reader.
Interesting. So we've talked a little bit about film, and obviously you guys are writers. Do you see them in the same light? Do you find one scarier to you than the other when you watch something on film versus when you read it in a book? Do you have a preference either way? You don't have to raise your hand, Maria. Once again, I get enough of that. I'm a college professor, and I get enough of that. I just want to have a conversation.
Well, I'm a teacher, so I'm like, you know, I'm used to.
So you're used to that. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I just marked down on your permanent record that she doesn't listen and she raises her hand too much. So there you go.
I'd never listen.
No,
Okay.
no, I didn't say it was a bad marking. It was good.
Oh, okay.
All right. So what was it?
I don't think I have a preference. Like, I think at the heart of it, a good story is a good story, whether it's on the visual or in the mind visual. Just tell me a good story, show me a good story,
Yeah.
and I'll take either one. A horror book, a horror movie, like I'm there. Like as long as it's got horror attached to it and any subgenre of horror, I will devour it. So for me personally, no preference.
No preference.
So I'm gonna say it depends on what kind of scare you're looking for. So for me, a jump scare in a movie is a jump scare. It hits you, you're like, dang, and then I wanted to curse, but I won't. It hits you and it's over. Like it's 30 seconds, you're past it. It may traumatize you forever, but that remains to be seen. But when you're reading a book, and I don't mean audiobooks. I mean like when you actually are reading,
Actually, physically reading,
like a book, yeah.
Eyeballs.
And you see something on that page that says, "By the way, you should probably look behind you right now." Chapter end. Like that would scare me to no end, especially if you're reading in the middle of the night, alone. The room is silent, and then suddenly you read that. That's chilling. So like, getting a chill, I feel is more book related, whereas a jump scare is more like visual. So getting the chills that's why I love writing and reading. It's because you get chills and those last a little bit longer. They linger and they stay with you until you put that book down. So that's the way I feel about it. I think it depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, I love that.
I would agree with that actually, because I think that if you're talking about something, some situation that's like prolonged, that's the character is suffering through, if the way that comes across in a movie is oftentimes it's almost like an action scene where this the person comes to some quick resolution, or they because it's not telling you something in real time if someone's being held prisoner in like an abandoned well for like 48 hours. So the interiority of that and actually exploring what the victim is feeling and what their fears are and stuff, I think you can go into it a lot more, versus if there's just some zombies chasing you through a mall. You can kind of explore that equally well, I think, in a movie, because it happens pretty quickly.
I would agree. I like both the books and the movies because, like Maria said, just tell me a good story. I will say I find them to be more effective horror when it's a book and something you're reading, not something you're listening to, because like John said, you're reading it, you're taking those words in, and half the time what you imagine in your head, what you see on that little screen in your brain, is a lot scarier than anything they're going to put on that screen.
Yeah, you're a participant. Yeah.
You're in there with them, and it's a whole lot scarier.
Which is why a lot of Stephen King books don't translate very well to the screen.
Yeah, I will agree to that.
Yeah, the other thing is I think that if for a imagery in a horror movie to stick with you, as well as like the scariest book you've ever read, you kind of need to watch it like 10 times.
Right.
For all those things to kind of take root. Whereas you spend so much time in the novel experiencing it that it's got more staying power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you read a book that can actually effectively give you a jump scare too.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of a rare thing, but like you'll read it and be like, you get that start and you're like, whoa, like that is pretty crazy. That, like you said, to me, that sticks with for, well, kind of forever. Like I see the cover of certain books and I'm like, yep, not going to that page. Had enough of that one. The one that my wife and I still talk about is in the dark half when all the birds are flying around. Every time we see birds, we're like, yep, there it is again. much more than The Birds by Hitchcock. It's that those birds. There's a problem.
Well, Hitchcock didn't write The Birds. Somebody else did.
No, right. Somebody else did. But
Right.
but the visual, that you would think that it's visual and it sticks in your brain a certain way, but it's when we read about the birds,
Mhm.
it put an imprint that stayed. Okay, Amanda, I did not let you off the hook on this one, and now you're all on the hook for this one. You mentioned you grew up in a haunted house. I want to hear about this.
It was just outside of Atlanta. It was a Civil War battlefield from Sherman's March to the Atlantic. It was a brand new development, which, of course, if you know paranormal building, things like that, it tends to disrupt, wake up, tick off spirits. And so we moved in, brand new house. I have pictures that I've posted online before. And there was one ghost that liked to protect me because he thought I reminded him of his little sister. I was like 4 when I moved in there. But he was a Confederate soldier. And he defended me a lot, up to and including stealing my mother's frying pan.
But he protected you. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So he wasn't scary.
No, he wasn't. There were some others in the area that were, but he kept them away. It was a really interesting, looking back on it. Of course, at the time, knew nothing, but that's what started my love for the paranormal and my interest in it. And went on to do some amateur investigating back in the 90s, where it was all audio tapes and Polaroids. And I had a few interesting experiences there that have been put into books. But yeah, I grew up in a haunted house for like ages 4 to 9. So
I've heard many of these stories, and some are like yours, where it's like, all right, not a bad situation. I've heard others where it's like, oh my God, we had to get out.
Mhm.
So this is a question for all of you. Have you had, since it is this spooky season and we are horror writers, and Amanda just cracked open the seal with this, have you guys had any in real life paranormal, scary encounters, whether it's ghosts or you were like, no, I saw Mothman? Anything you want to admit?
We don't talk
No,
about such things.
You don't. I am so shocked.
I mean, I'm Honduran, so like we always have a haunted room in our house. It's like, don't go in that room. That's where the cucuys are. You gotta stay away. So I mean, yes, I guess, but we like growing up Roman Catholic and Hispanic and with a Latina mom, and superstition runs deep in our family.
Right. Yeah. Liz said she'll send Sage, and that it is a safe space. You can talk about it. John, have you had any?
I've had places where I had really uneasy feelings, but nothing like sort of explicit like that. It was clear why or anything like that.
Not a haunted house you grew up in or anything?
No, I was one of them was on the Queen Mary.
You had a Queen Mary one? Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I didn't see anything, but it's just like certain parts of that are just, I don't know, it just feels very unsettling and strange. And I don't know if that's the echo of being somewhere where, there used to be thousands of people roaming around here. But I think it's also that it's from a completely different era that makes it seem more surreal, because like I've been on an aircraft carrier that was empty, and that didn't feel really haunted. So I think I don't know, there's something special about that ship in general that just makes it like that, maybe.
Interesting, because that Queen Mary is one that you hear a lot about. I have a friend that does a paranormal podcast, and I want to say it was his sister-in-law finally came on one time to tell her Queen Mary story, and it was really good. and she did not want to tell it. So it was like, oh, I love to hear that. I love it. Okay,
Yeah,
Maria, you were avoiding.
We did a nighttime. Oh,
no, go
nighttime
ahead.
Haunted tour, like the very last tour of the night.
Oh, really?
It was really cool because you go down into the bowels of the ship and you get to see the swimming pool, which you normally, don't necessarily get to see. And there's just so many places there that are like really highly creepy.
Yeah, I hear that the here comes a bad joke. I hear that the tour of Diddy's place is going to be just as terrifying someday when we go into. I couldn't help it. You guys like to get a reaction with horror. I like to get a reaction all the time. So I couldn't help it. All right, Maria, you were avoiding the question over there.
I have to.
Have you had anything?
Oh, every day. Like every day of my life, there's something different. So, I mean, I could tell you the story of what just happened last night with my dead mom, but I'm not going to. So.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. No, it's a constant like signs and symbols and like just an influx of like I know, and I've always had that in tune with I didn't live in a haunted house, and my house was, fine. But just being places and playing with the Ouija board when I was a kid and hearing things and seeing things and getting signs from things. It's part of my everyday. It's part of my everyday.
See, you had a good answer and you dodged it pretty well at the same time.
Oh, it was okay. I answered it okay.
It was good. Yeah, actually, it's funny because it's something I've always been interested in, and I would always say I didn't have any, but yeah, we had a couple of really good ghost encounters one time that made me go, "Yep, we're gonna leave now." That just happened, and I've always been very interested in like the UFO stuff. My dad had a great encounter that I'm like, "Oh, I'm so jealous! I'd love to at least see something." Right. And then we were at a wedding, and I brought up Bigfoot because I'm obsessed. And a guy, he's like, "Oh," the boyfriend of a friend of ours goes, "Oh, my dad's a professional Bigfoot hunter." I'm like, "What?" "Oh, he sees them all the time." And then I said, "Have you ever seen anything?" And he was like, "Yeah." He had the scariest story. I'm like, "That is terrifying." And he was like, "It just walked away." I'm like,
"Was it blurry in real life?"
No, but he was. So kind of weird. So, okay, well, we got an answer out of all of that. So, as horror writers, do you feel that going forward, you're going to want to stick within kind of the horror genre that you're in? Or are you like, no, I really want to explore, I want to write a slasher, I want to write a clown full of bugs story. That was for Amanda. I want to write an alien type story, an alien horror story. Or are you like, no, this is my thing I'm way into?
So if I may.
You may.
I am actually, so beyond the Houses of Lorien Hollow, there's another series planned that takes place a good long while after Houses, and it's a standalone right now, but I would like to turn it into a series. It's more horror paranormal romance, which is something that's very alien to me. Like, I don't write romance, so it's been something I've been trying to do more, and it's I'm getting better at it. It's uncomfortable, but I'm pushing myself as a writer to do so. So the story, the title of that book will be Fair Verona and Redemption's Fate, and it's about a demon exiled from hell because he fell in love with his exorcist. So the story kind of follows him, and Verona is studying him. She's a paranormal investigator and exorcist, and they fall in love, and she's the one protecting him from angels as well as hell. So I'm diving into romance, and I think that's eventually going to be something I do on the side. I don't want that to be the full thing though, So, but yeah, pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, you're going to write some demontasy. I love it. I love it. And no, we're not going to use that word. That was a terrible word. Everybody
No, it was
can be
great.
horrified by it.
I liked it.
What about the rest of you guys? What about the rest of you guys? Anyone going to jump into slashers?
I have an idea, but I haven't fully fleshed it out yet because I've had a lot on my plate with trying to get 3 books out next year. So right now I'm focusing on the Life After series, the Silent Sentinel series, and alternating them once I get Silent Sentinels fully out. But they will eventually come to an end. And yeah, I've got a slasher, I've got a demon, I've got a witch thing. That would be 5 books. But I have a lot on my plate, and here, let me just. This is my idea book. So.
Yeah, excellent. John, how about you?
That's a good question. I mean, it's something I definitely struggle with because, I think when writing horror, your goal is to write the scariest story you possibly can. And, you could argue that if you've written in some subgenre enough, then you've gotten, better at that and you've honed those skills and you've kind of more specialized. Maybe it's easier to write a good story. But at the same time, it kind of makes me wonder if by doing so you're avoiding, branching into some new area where you might be less competent at it, but you might discover some kind of new fears you can tap into that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. So that and wanting to avoid using the same plot device or the same kind of thing it's I don't know. I think it's sort of a constant struggle. But yeah, right now I feel like if I'm writing things that are still scaring me as I'm writing them, then that's like I'm gonna just keep doing that.
Just keep doing that. Yeah, understood. How about you, Maria?
Same. I mean, that's my jam. I'm gonna stay with what's in my heart.
Yeah.
Like I don't ever see myself writing a love romance comedy. Like that's just I know I wouldn't be good at it because that's not where I live. I mean, in as far as horror and dark fantasy goes, like wherever the day takes me, if I'm gonna go splatterpunk or slasher or whatever, like it just I think it's all more about the idea and more about what I'm feeling at that moment. I'm dealing with my witches. I am like 7 books deep into my witch saga. So I think I need to like play them out first and then see where I'm going to go. But I don't see myself being like, comedy or, I'm going to stick with the dark and the
So
twisted.
not switching genres totally. You're like, this is what you like.
Yeah, this is where I live. So I'm not going to move. I don't have any plans on moving anytime soon.
It got me thinking another genre that I'd really like to see you guys all write would be a cozy splatterpunk. I think that would be, we could take it to the nursing home, pass it out, and they start reading, and they're like, isn't this cute? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I love it. Shh, don't tell anybody. That's what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, maybe we should co-write something.
There you go.
That's what I was just going to say. Like, can we...
Little anthology.
I'm just saying.
We could get an anthology together. I'm friends with all those authors on Books of Horror now. I bet I could grab them
Hell
all
yeah.
for you.
Let's go.
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm in.
Sounds
Yeah. Great. Okay. Something was just birthed here. 2 heads. It lives in a basket now because it is horror. So, okay, we're at the end of our time. This has been great. I've had so much fun talking to you guys. And I can already warn you guys that we're going to do more of this in the future. So I will definitely invite you back for more of this. Why don't we go around, each of you give where people can interact with you the most? What's the best place for them to go? Well, if you're an Instagram person, if you're a Facebook person, if you're like, you know what, here, I'm going to show you something. I'm asking this question, but I have the answer right here. So, Sarah, they can find you on Instagram. That's where you interact the most, right?
So, no lie. Yes, Instagram is where I'm at. No lie. I just, like, the person sitting next to me here at Starbucks, I'm like, crap, do you have the book I just gave you? And she came through. So this is my book, The Soundtrack to Your Scream. It's the first in the Houses of Lorien Hollow book series. You can find me on Instagram. That's thank you, my love. That is the easiest way to reach out to me and get in touch. I love talking to everyone. If you share something of mine, if you want to just chat about the book or ask me questions, please do so. I love talking to readers. But the Soundtrack to Your Scream is now available as of last Saturday. It is now available on Barnes & Noble, Four Horsemen's website, and Amazon, I believe. So check it out.
Yeah, basically anywhere you get your books. And if they don't
That.
carry it, ask, because
That.
I happen to know they can get it. So all right. Maria. Oh no, let's go with Amanda. We'll go in order here. Amanda, you put your website down. Is that the best place for people to find you and interact?
It is, because all of my links are there, as well as my email address. And I just launched an email address where if you read my series, you actually can email to talk to the characters. So
That is so fun.
So you send an email and say you're sending it to Cadence, and I will have Cadence answer. So
that is brilliant.
I love that. Stealing it.
Brilliant. Yeah, right? Like,
so I've got all my stuff on my website, and my Facebook link, my Twitter, not my Twitter, I don't do that anymore, but Instagram, cat. And this is Leia, by the way. But no, that everything is on my website. So
fantastic. All right, John, I put down Instagram on here. Is that the best place to interact with you?
I think we pretty much echo stuff, Facebook and Twitter and stuff. It generally gets broadcast out to everywhere. But my website is johnmaly.com. And that is where I have sort of a sign up email thing, which I don't use very often. But when I do, it's usually because there's some, giveaway thing, like some free chapters or a free short story or something like that. So that's probably a good starting point that then links to all the socials.
Don't make me have to reprimand you for not using that newsletter. I swear, John.
I knew it was coming.
Yep.
I knew it was
You've
coming.
got 3 authors that hear from me all the time, John. You're going to be in trouble with me. You're lucky you're not one of my authors. All right. And then finally, and I'll show this at the end too, so that everybody can get a good look. But Maria, you put down your link tree.
Yes. So my link tree will link you to all of my stuff, my website, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. It's so weird because I have more of a following on TikTok than I do on Instagram. So I'm I teeter back and forth between all of it. But yeah, it'll take you to my Amazon, all that fun stuff. So it's Linktree at Maria DeVivo. Yeah.
I'll put it back up. Guys, as we leave, I'll leave that up for a minute and then we'll go to the other things. One last thing that I do want to bring up for sure is if people do want to donate on Twitch, or if they go, you know what, I don't do Twitch, but I want to donate, contact us. You can contact me at southgatemediagroup@gmail.com is probably the easiest way, or right in the chat and we'll get to you. But we are doing 20% of anything that comes in because of this, because of HurriCon. We're going to donate to beloved Asheville. They are doing boots on the ground. I've heard lots of stories coming out of there, and this organization, 100% of the money goes right to the help, as opposed to I got 40%. Now I'm going to pass on, a little bit to this. It goes where it's supposed to go. So once again, I'll put that up at the end. In a couple of minutes, we'll be starting the next panel. But guys, thank you so much. You were wonderful. Thanks for being on our panel. If you could hear the thunderous applause, you would be hearing them right now.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we're back. Welcome to HurriCon. I'm Rob Southgate, and right now we've only got one guest. We'll see what happens. I happen to know this guest, and I happen to know he can talk for an hour, so we won't have any problem there. Like he's insulted, right? So, welcome to HurriCon. This is the gaming portion of what we do. We are doing screens, dice, and cards, but it might really be that still applies. We don't have any video game people in with us right now, but there are screens involved, right? So I've got Mr. Biscuits with me. That's what you want me to call you, correct?
Sure. Yeah, go right ahead.
All right, Biscuits. And we are going to talk about gaming, the business of gaming, writing, all that fun stuff. Yeah, this is awesome. Let me tell you a couple of things real quick. Yeah, in fact, Liz, if you would like to join us, welcome. Just pop in here. And also, I wanted to share this up front. If anybody donates during HurriCon or that watches this and wants to donate, anything that we get as a result of HurriCon, 20% of the donations are going to beloved Asheville. I want to reiterate that. It's very important to know where things are going. And you can look them up also. If you just type in beloved Asheville in Google, you'll find them. And it's just an absolutely fantastic organization. We just found out in the last hour that Vincent Price's daughter lives there. So how interesting is that? But now we're going to talk about games. And Biscuits, you want me to call you Biscuits or your real name?
Oh, you can call me John.
I'm going to call you John. Hi, John.
Hello.
But you are Mr. Biscuits, and it's important that people know that.
Yes. I am the proverbial Biscuits. Whether you're American or British, I accept all.
You'll take any type of biscuit. Although, over there we call you Mr. Digestive. And we're going to also be joined by Liz, co-creator of HurriCon. She wants to jump in on this, which Liz will have a lot to say. She's been around the video game industry and the nerd world for a long time. Hi, Liz. Uh-oh, you're muted. I don't know why. So, are you there? Are you there, Liz? No, I hear nothing. Well, when you just talk, and once we hear you, I'll let you know. So, John, let's start out with this. You're involved in a few projects right now. Why don't you tell people who you are and what are some of the projects you're involved with?
Oh man. So the short answer is I am involved as a representative and affiliate of Storytellers Forge. I am also the owner and proprietor of Biscuit Tin RPG. Everything that I do is very role play centric. I tend to stick to mechanics, but lately I've been branching out with a couple of my third-party books for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons regarding a place called the First Gate. It has its own place, its own information. It's like really lore heavy, which is fun, but also has a lot of interesting game mechanics for players and storytellers alike to use. We just recently dropped the most recent book, Legend of the Shroud, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, actually, when I interviewed you, like a year ago, you told me all about the First Gate, and yes. I was just so into it. Tell people what the gameplay is, because that's what was so cool when you talked about what is different about it. It stuck with me, and I know it's stuck with people at PopCon because you sold a lot of books.
Yes. So the First Gate itself is the way that it's designed is system agnostic, because the way that I wanted to approach the actual setting itself was being something that no matter what game you're playing, you could hop into. So the entire setting itself is a massive city that we've actually updated recently to be interspersed with what is called the Wilds. It's a massive city that sits atop a jade door frame floating outside of time and space through the infinite void. It has its own lore, the reason why it exists, which was recently released to the public in the form of the Legend of the Shroud, which kind of delves into the darker side of why First Gate exists. But the way that it was designed was very specifically, if you have a game, whether you're playing a traditional fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, or even something as nuanced and future tech as cyberpunk, this world is a place that you could accidentally slip into one way or another. So it exists outside of time and space, as I said, and is inside all of them at the same time. So it's a place where gods and mortals walk the same streets and have to adhere to the same laws. Very strict corporal punishment for anybody that commits murder, and that actually gets described as to why in the second book. But yes, it's very high fantasy with a kind of a cyber edge to it. Recently addition to it, so it's fantastic. It's a beautiful setting.
I love it. I love it. I thought it was so fascinating. And then when I got to see the book in person, I thought it not only looked beautiful, but I thought that just reading through, I was like, God, it's so imaginative. There's so much cool stuff going on in here. And then you also mentioned Storyteller's Forge, and I know you've got quite a few projects with that.
Yes. So Storyteller's Forge, I was fortunate enough to know the proprietors of that particular studio beforehand from a previous venture. And they invited me on to be a writer for parts of the Black Ballad itself, which is a recent release that they had within the last year. And now they've been doing another crowdfunding right now. But my main job over there outside of the writing is I'm the Discord herder of cats. I'm a moderator. So my job is just to make sure that everything stays above board and anything that is below board is in the proper channels. But no, I was uniquely blessed with the ability to write for them and created such fascinating things as a lot of the magic items that pop up in the Black Ballad, including the Soul Shot, which has been a crowd favorite, as well as the Soul Stitched and a little faction in there called the Covenant of the Stitch, which is a little hidden gem that's thrown in there.
Now, is there an Easter egg where there's a gate that possibly pops up at some point?
Unfortunately, not in canon. But don't.
We don't deal in canon around here. Cut it out, John.
Don't fret. There's a chance that my players in my current run that I stream will perchance accidentally wander into this, whether they want to or not. But we'll see.
Yeah, sounds accurate, right?
Yes.
Now, you said that like with your game, and we're not going to just focus on a single game. We're going to kind of talk about all this, but I'm just letting people know this. But with your game, you mentioned like Pathfinder, D&D. So this can be kind of, you can slip into it from pretty much anything you're playing, right?
Yes. So while the setting itself is system neutral, it is very heavily geared towards 5th edition when it comes to the player classes and subclasses and things along those lines. But with Pathfinder 2nd edition, it's so closely connected to that type of system that it wouldn't be that hard to modify it to work within that system as well. I do have plans to eventually learn that system more fluently so that I can actually kind of make an alternate version where you can have that stuff accessible to you. But right now, I'm going with 5th edition because it's what I know.
Makes sense. I was wondering if, I'm playing Bunnies and Burrows, if I could accidentally slip into a gate. That would be amazing.
Yes.
You go in as a bunny and you really can't do anything but like hop around.
Yeah.
But I'd love it.
Mm-hmm.
So for you as a gamer, you obviously are a writer. Was this kind of the entry point? Like you were like, man, I want to write. I want to get into that end of it, or were you like, no, man, I just really want to run a Discord for a writing group?
So it was interesting. This entire thing started back when the Red Opera, which was a project that Storyteller's Forge has officially gotten their hands back on.
Yes.
The writers got the rights back to it, which is fantastic. When that was crowdfunding, I believe back in 2020, I had just picked back up in Dungeons and Dragons, and I had started diving into 5th edition. And during that time, we were kind of going through. I was just having fun being a normal server regular, as it were, just talking about things, talking to people about ideas and concepts. And I just started designing this silly, like warlock subclass that was absolute nonsense. Have your patron be the infernal chef, or as I like to call him, Jeff, patron of biscuits. And it was an interesting class. It was very broken, not great. But as I started doing it, I realized that I really had a passion for creating things that were not really like number crunchy, but more along the lines of I want to play a character concept. So I went from that prospect of just making these silly things on the side to just being like, I want to make a little compendium. I want to make something for players and storytellers alike that inspires. Anybody can come up with an idea, but implementing the idea is a completely different thing. So I sat down, I sat behind a keyboard, and I just started writing. And from that point right there, I realized that while it is something that I just do on the side for fun, it is a very large passion of mine that I did not know. And it didn't hit me until like my early 30s. Like before that, I was just kind of like, where am I going? What am I doing? I don't know. I just work a job. But now I'm like, I am so very serious about just creating worlds and fun options for people. So yeah, it is very much something that I kind of accidentally fell into and fell in love with at the same time.
Now you brought up a couple of things that I want to ask about here, because one of our past lives my wife and I made zines, and I know that in the gaming world, home brews that are really popular. Was that kind of, I know you mentioned that, but like, is that what kind of ignited it for you? Was like that home brew, I'm playing in this sandbox, and it was like, oh God, this is such a great sandbox.
Yes, that was part of it. The main thing that pushed me towards the popular third party like products is the fact that, and you know, shut me down if you like, but Wizards of the Coast, their main modules, just they were either lacking a lot of information unless you've read the book.
Okay, I just shut him down. No,
Okay.
I'm kidding, John.
I wasn't
That's
fluent.
pretty good.
I wasn't fluent in the lore, right? So I didn't read the books. I didn't know all of the ins and outs of like the Underdark. And the first module I picked up was Out of the Abyss. And unless you've read all of the R.A. Salvatore books and the consequent, like, you know, Forgotten Realms style campaigns, it is very up to you to fill in the massive gap that's there. And I found it frustrating. So when I found that there were people out there creating entire worlds that you didn't have to go back and read the canon lore in the background, you could just dive in and you had all the information at your fingertips, that's what really drew me into it. And I wanted to be a part of that style of creation. I want you to have everything in front of you without having to go find third-party sources or the original source in order to utilize it.
Yeah, I love it. That's fantastic. Liz, welcome to the show.
And can we hear me this time?
We can hear you. So you wanted to jump in and be a guest. What's your history with gaming?
So I have a long and extensive history with gaming, and it's a very strange one. Back in the early 80s, basically I was about 9 years old at the most. I had just finished Dark Knight Returns and basically had my world blown. At the same time, I read that comic because I had access to that comic because I was sitting at my mother's gaming group. And that's why I had
a gaming group. Wow.
So my mother played D&D in the early 80s. And just as like my brain was blown by Dark Knight Returns, she goes, "Hey baby, your math's getting better. Do you want to come game with the adults?" I was like, yeah, I do. and so I was that weird kid who was into D&D early, and then got out of it as soon as I discovered voice. And ironic, right? And one of the things, though, but for my day job became gaming. And I was the games buyer for Diamond Comic Distributors for a couple of years. And I have a mad love affair with really, I almost feel like I'm going to get narked if I say gamer, because I don't game as much as I would want to. But in that same vein, and back to what he was saying earlier, that's the thing about gaming now, is that there's so much, you're so overwhelmed, and you'll see the world building right now is better than it's ever been before. But then you sit there and you go, where do I even start? Where do I even get back in? But all of geek genres are that, and everybody now, we are at this incredible golden age, and it's like, how do you get in? Where do you start? So am I gaming? I'm just playing D&D again for the first time in a very, very long time. And I'm just staggered to see, BTTs and other people getting in and just the plethora of information and watching all of this develop and having been there since the start, it's been amazing.
It's funny, on the last panel we were talking about getting bullied as a kid because you were into horror and genre stuff. Did you guys experience that with gaming, or am I older than you and I was the one that experienced it alone?
I'm gonna go ahead and out myself. I was not an avid gamer until my early 20s. I knew tangentially of Dungeons and Dragons, but growing up, I was more of a Magic the Gathering kid.
Okay.
I played Magic the Gathering cards. I sucked at it. I was terrible. I didn't go to tournaments. There's no way. Everyone's like, you gotta know the meta. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I just want to play with my friends.
Right.
So then eventually in my 20s, I got introduced to not the original AD&D or second edition or anything like that. I started in third and 3.5. So that was literally like super crunchy for me, coming from like a kid that just played like Final Fantasy games, right?
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting thing, but because of the fact that I was brought in by a group of people that were like kind of already the alt scene outcast kids, there wasn't a lot of bullying that I had to experience. And I guess that's probably for the best because I don't react well to bullying.
Does anybody really?
I mean, there's a difference between like, you know what, whatever. And then the guy that goes, you know what, go ahead, start something.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out also like how to put something as I'm literally chiming in on my phone, which no one should ever do, but here we are. Bullying, I had a really weird experience in all this, and I think it was because I think gaming as a community specifically is very niche oriented, and there's very like specific value systems in it. And I was this precocious, loud 20-something game buyer who basically came into a professional capacity at a time when the world was really ready for that. So I'm showing up at like Gamma Trade Show. I'm showing up doing the game buyer interactions with Hobby Japan, and everyone was really cool. Like, I didn't have and there were many a time. And I have at least 3 of these interactions. And in this day and age of the Me Too movement and things like that, there were definitely some situations where I'd be like in a hotel room completely around with guys, and I'd have that female moment of maybe this isn't good.
Yeah,
and
right.
maybe and I was always fine. I was never bullied. I mean, there is definitely some misogyny. And there is definitely some misogyny that is still in the geek space, but we are, whatever. But like, did anybody ever target me or anything like that? Nah, not once. I'm a lucky woman.
See, I was there kind of at the dawn of it. I remember I was in, I want to say junior high or maybe even before that. And I went to Thanksgiving at my aunt and uncle's down in Jacksonville, Illinois. So we're talking rural. And my cousins all had D&D. They had that first edition. We're talking the white box with the 3 books in it. That's what we played. And my mind was blown. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And then when I came back home and I tried to figure it out, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And my friends and I all sat down and it just ended up like talking about Star Wars. And then in high school, they had a D&D club and I joined it. And that was where there was that bullying, like you went into it, but when you came out, like, oh, you're playing your games, and it's like, oh God. Plus that was also during the Satanic Panic. So people were like, you guys are worshiping Satan in there. It's like, well, yeah, we are. I rolled a 20 and he won. But yeah, although it's funny, I a couple years ago, one of my friends sent me a picture from our yearbook. I don't have any of that stuff anymore. I'm not really sentimental about things. And there was a picture of our freshman year D&D club. And I'm going to say there was a girl in our club.
Yes.
That was unheard of back then.
There were more of us than you care to admit, and I'm sorry, a dice bag is the ultimate accessory. So,
and you know what? I would have. I mean, I didn't even think anything of it, but when I saw there was a girl in the picture, there's all these dudes and one girl, and the dudes. I mean, I'm using that loosely. These were the cretins at the school, but it was awesome. It was awesome, and the entry point for you guys. It sounds like it was Dungeons and Dragons. I think that is kind of the entry point for most people.
yes and no. When you think about it from like just a geographic perspective, I mean, board games in Europe have been a thing far longer, than we care to admit. And I started with D&D, but where I really found like my fun was table talk and talking smack. So, mob wars, things like that, really sort of like the old school things like Plague and Pestilence, and I had a lot of fun. And we've all forgotten cheap ass games, man.
No, cheap
ass games is today's everyone's budget friendly. Yeah. And it's there's so much to choose from now. Like there's and the irony, and because of being in the business side of things so young, I could see, so we literally did market research on this. We asked, if you ask the majority of the world, the majority of the US, if you ask, are you a gamer or not? Most people will answer yes. And then the next thing is, well, I play Scrabble, I play Bargy. And so that's where these nuances of RPG, card games, tabletop, miniatures, and then if you start going around the world, then what people embrace are completely different. And like these are the things that people like will kind of blow your mind. We're talking about D&D. D&D was only popular in the US. Yeah. Vampire the Masquerade was D&D in Germany. Right. Because it was darker, more storytelling. It was
a safe space for the real vampires that lived there to play something.
Amen. And Warhammer, like tabletop miniatures, that's huge in Australia because it's toy soldier country. Yep. So we talk about these things, and like we started in D&D because we're in the US. Yeah. If you probably started at the same time as a gamer somewhere else, it's just a different game.
Interesting. Now, how do you think games have evolved over time? I mean, it's probably a tough question, but do you see that it has evolved? And well, I want to hear what you say. I have a formulated question that I'm kind of coming up with, but I want to hear what you guys say. How do you think it's evolved over time?
So one of the things that I've noticed is outside of like the people who've been playing for a very long time, the way that I've seen the games develop now is they've made them a lot more, the popular ones have made it a lot more entry friendly. So when I was learning Dungeons and Dragons, or when I was learning Rifts, or like Paranoia, or any of the other number of things that I was learning at the time, they were a lot more like, there was a lot more numbers that went into it, a lot more thought that you had to put into it. And while there was a lot of like interesting things you could do to, create your own custom character, it was kind of like a level of difficulty that was added on at the beginning. So unless you had someone who's willing to sit down with you and walk you through the ropes so that you could actually learn the system, it was a lot more difficult. Things now, specifically D&D with 5th edition, has made it very user friendly. Like you can jump right in, and they have like pre-made adventures, pre-made character sheets, and learning that system is so much easier now than it was back in even the late 90s, and then especially the early 80s and such. Like it's tailored now to making it a lot friendlier for the new player. That's what I've noticed with a lot of the different game systems, because that's how you get traction. You want something easy enough to pick up, and you don't have to go through and go, okay, I've got to go to page 812 here to remember what I'm supposed to do on page 3 over here. Like it's a lot easier now, I think. And I think that's in some areas a good thing, but it does also detract from a lot of the interesting and cool stuff that you used to be able to do.
Well, I wonder if by you saying that, that it's easier, and I do think it's easier. I think that you get these starter kits that are really good, easy entry points. I think that if it hooks you, that escalation to it getting more difficult and doing what attracted us.
Mhm.
It's like it's right around the corner. I like
Yes.
playing Kids on Bikes. You play that starter kit. It's super easy. You can sit down and you're like playing within like 5 minutes pretty much. And it's like, oh, cool. We're solving this paranormal thing and we're on bikes and there's guys chasing us. We're rolling die and that's cool. And then you get the real game and you go, oh God, it's so much more. So I think that you're right. It is they figured out you could make an ease of use, because when I first started, like I said, it was those 3 white books. Those were impossible to decipher. And then you took your graph paper and you drew a dungeon. You're like, okay, let's try to figure out but man, it was hard. So yeah, I see that. What about you, Liz? What do you think about the evolution?
Lower barrier of entry, way more open to formats and subject matter. People are starting to realize that gaming is learning, where gaming was fun when we were little, and now gamification is a thing. One of the most wild stories I saw in the paper recently that is just freaking awesome. University of Chicago is using role-playing games as a way to teach English as a second language, because
Oh
so
my God,
much,
I love that.
right? Because so much of language is context and visual cues, and gaming is a great way to do that. And also, talking about like the tactile, positive reinforcement of, okay, I rolled, I did something, we have achieved, yay. And so like this is changing a new game. And we were talking, one of the sort of things that we've sort of stayed away from is this, how this plays out in video games. And video games now, they are these epic dramas, these incredible worlds now. And this is the thing that I find incredibly interesting. We're talking about like what happened. So Sega, 20-30 years ago, Sega was churning out what they could. Some of it was okay, but just based off the technology, you couldn't do so much. Now, as the technology has sort of leaped up, the barrier of entry to a good video game, that could be a lot more money and a lot more risky. But because of that, and because, there is this capacity towards Final Fantasy 50,402, and but in that production process, role-playing games, tabletop games, and hobby games have seen a heyday going back and forth, because as we're waiting for the next video game, we got to do something. And,
Right.
and the world.
Wait, Liz, you mean you don't go to your stack of shame? Because whether
No.
it's video games or tabletop, it's a serious problem around here.
It can be. I have a very limited, ironically, based off my history, I have a very, very limited collection, and that helps. But that's the thing, is we all go into this, and this is the thing that people are like, gaming, why do all video game movies suck? But RPGs are so much better. And I'm like, of course they are. What's missing from a video game that's in an RPG? You, the player.
Right.
A video game movie does not have the player. And this is the age of the player. You can choose your subject matter, choose your format, choose who you're going to play with anywhere in the world. I mean, I'm getting back into it at the time of VTTs, and I'm like, this is freaking awesome. By the way,
No,
I'm completely
it's active.
confused. What was that?
I said it's active versus passive. When you play a video
Yes.
game, even though our parents would say it was passive, it's not. You're active.
Yeah.
You're trying to think as the character. You're in there. When you watch a movie, it's completely passive.
Right. And
so that's why it doesn't translate the same way.
We are in the time of the age of the player. And we have, as players, we have more choice, more selection, more control. There's never been a better time.
I'll go with that.
Yeah,
I like that
absolutely.
idea. So here's another question. Like, this is something that even back when I first started, this was happening, but it wasn't the way it is now. What do you think of the IP getting transferred into a tabletop game or a video game? Because, like, if you go back, like I remember when we were in D&D Club, we had a girl there. Did I mention that? we had that Marvel game, that original Marvel Heroes game. Absolutely loved it. Then they came out with the Indiana Jones TTRPG, and it was hot garbage. Now you have, it seems like every property I'll turn around and go like, I'll go into the gaming store and it's like, oh, it's already been turned into 4 different types of games. Do you like when that happens, where you feel like it expands on the experience, or are you like, yeah, it's a cash grab? Kind of like, I don't really like musicals, especially modern ones, because it always feels like a cash grab. Oh, we made this cool movie called Beetlejuice, and now it's a musical. And oh, now there's this, and now it's a musical. And I'm like, okay, why? Do you feel that way about video games, or are you like, no, I mean, tabletop, or even video games, or are you like, no, I really like the immersive experience of all of it?
Depends on the game and depends on the development. Some of them are amazing. And this, like, we have this idea like this is new. It's not new. Back in the day, and we forgot this, the original Star Wars TCG through Decipher, one of the things that was part of the appeal of the card game was they had the rights to actually create Star Wars canon.
Oh, they did. I remember. I loved that game.
Yes. So you were adding that while each, new booster came out, you were part of the experience of the game being developed. And that's something that we're seeing more and more through Kickstarters, crowdfunding, crowd initiatives, that we are more a part of making the donuts now. And so we some of them are cash grabs, but I'll be real honest with you. If Mondo releases anything and I have the money, it's happening. Like, it's on, right? The stuff they make is gorgeous. So it's a question of what they are bringing to the table that is new in this new development or iteration of an IP.
I like that. I do very much agree with that. I think from my perspective of it, I really think it depends on who gets a hold of the property, right? Yeah. So a lot of them will license it out to companies. And some of that may just be because the company had the cash flow in order to snag it, because they thought it would be a good cash grab. Like, we can throw out whatever we want, people will just eat it up. But we've seen time and time again where, like, these major IPs that are super popular, like, come out and hit the market, and then like 6 months later, it's gone because they didn't effectively incorporate like the real rules of how it works. They didn't make it like, they didn't grab you. They didn't give you that hook that you really needed to stay with it. And then it just kind of fizzles out. They lose the rights to the property, and then it's up for grabs again. And then you're kind of like, well, the last time I saw this, it was hot garbage. And
you've got tainted meat at that point, potentially. If they did mishandle it, I don't care who gets it next. It might be amazing, but it might be a hard sell to get somebody to buy it.
Yes.
Well, yes. And that is absolutely from the business side of things that people don't understand. They see geek as geek, and geek is geek. That's like saying the most generic aloha phrase for, each category of nerd is very specific, very nuanced. When people are making this product, especially, I'll give you the greatest like real world example. If you say the word fanboy or fangirl to a diehard geek, that's an insult.
Yeah.
How dare you? If you say that in a boardroom, that's a positive.
Right.
And they don't take the time to really look and understand the worlds that they're playing in, and that becomes a problem.
But isn't that true of the book industry, of the movie industry, of any?
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. Because I've been doing this for over 2 decades, and I've worked with film studios. I've worked, how many times have you seen a movie and you're like, that has nothing to do with the story?
Yes. Very often.
And you sit there and you go, how did that happen? I can answer that question because I've been in that room. And and all of when somebody this is all geek things are narrative plays, and that is something that we don't talk about. That they see it as a product, a commodity, a thing to sell to someone, but that thing to sell to someone is a story. Every time you take that IP and you go through a different room, it's like playing a bad game of telephone. So by the time something comes out, it's awful. Or my favorite, and this was my favorite. I can't say who it was because otherwise things. I'm in
Was
the
it
back of
John?
the cab.
Oh, we won't
No.
say.
Yeah. Back of the cab in New York. It's a film studio, and we're going to New York Comic Con. It is a Nerdist panel, and there are 3 key players, key people, key talent, and the trailer for it was awful. It was like a different thing. And I went to the PR person. You know, there's always a PR person. We have to work in tandem. And I said, "Did you read the book?" And she goes, "No." I said, "I know." Double dog dare you to do this before the panel. And part of that, right? We want to be like, "Oh, they're not nerds. They don't understand." But they're sitting on a pile of shame too. Every single person has a laundry list of books, of media that we haven't consumed. We want to, but we don't talk about the fact that this is not only is this the age of the player, but this is the age. There's so much content being generated at an astronomical level. Nobody can do everything, so we have to. Everybody's got to pick and choose what they do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because whether it's gaming or movies or whatever, comics even, I always go back to the fact that there should be somebody who's very passionate about it, that it is involved, and something got away from them. And when people tear into it too hard, sometimes you go, "But wait, where did it go awry? And was everybody a bad guy involved in it? Not everybody is Uwe Boll." But then again, he's passionate about it, right?
Yeah.
When he makes something, he believes it. It's terrible, but he believes it. And he doesn't understand the story. And you're like, "Did you even read it?" No, but he's passionate about it. So that's an interesting line as well. I was just watching a thing about the Fantastic Four, the Roger Corman one, and about how it was never supposed to come out. They just wanted to hold on to the property, and that was it. So this thing that they made, not the thing, I guess we should use a different word, this monstrosity was never supposed to be seen. But then when you see it, you're like, "Well, why is it such garbage?" It's like, well, yeah, but they were just trying to hold on to the property. There was a business decision to hold on to it. Ironically, it's not as bad as you think. You watch it and you're like, "Well, no, it's not good. It's not as bad as you think."
We talk about holding on to the IP and back to games. Like the people that I'm constantly impressed by who have held on to an IP and just really continue to grow the line, grow the audience, grow the story. Arc Dream Publishing. I have a mad love affair for their products. That is 4 guys at the top of their game. They've been in those Hollywood boardrooms and they said, "No, we're not doing this."
Yeah.
And they're coming out with a Black Company RPG.
Oh,
about
really?
the same. Oh yeah.
Oh.
Flutters.
Yeah.
But at the same time, HBO is adapting it. So I'm like, I am hesitant yet hopeful.
Yeah, actually, they talked about that Black Company being made. That was years ago. I heard about that, and it was an HBO thing, and I'm like, "Where is it? Why is it taking so long?" Got me nervous, but now, I mean, who knows?
And the fact that Arc Dream is getting involved with an RPG adaptation at the same time, I'm like, and we have to also give ourselves, like, I think, and here's another question for everyone involved. I mean, I think one of the things I adore, one of my favorite things about gamers, gamer loyalty is second to none. Gamers are loyal. They are loyal to the product line. They are loyal to the medium. And I am friends with people that I haven't seen in person in 20 years. And they're like, "What do you need? I'm here." And I'm like, I love gamers. And we're talking about all this and we're talking about the evolution. We haven't brought up, one game that has really bridged the gap and shown the evolution and played and talks about the older age of gaming and newer age, Shadow Dart. Like,
oh yeah.
there is, I have put that book in front of grognards and they're like, I don't want to like it, but it's perfect.
Yeah.
And
But I don't want to like it.
yeah, and new players are like, this is gritty, this is fun, it's light, you know. One of the things that is, and this is just some straight up nerddom, that you guys, the original book came out as a 6x9 format, which is the same as manga.
Yeah.
And so at the first time, as manga is white hot in the US again, we are now having people who are stuffing their backpacks with manga and RPGs, and all of these things are in, you know, the same format. And so this is a real interesting time.
So of the I'm gonna shift gears here a little bit. Of games that are out there, and there's a million of them. If I were to ask you, outside of Dungeons and Dragons and Magic, I say that to you, John.
Okay.
Outside of those, what would you say if you had to pick 3 games that you're taking with to a desert island? What are they? Forget D&D, forget Magic, because those would eat your whole time up on the desert island, right there.
Right. So are we sticking specifically in the TTRPG realm, or are we going?
Games.
Okay. All right. So number 1, I'm going to go ahead and pick up the Relic system. Relic RPG has recently come out, and I got a chance to play it, and it is fascinating, fun. It's a little bit of a learning curve, but it is beautiful. Just the portability and accessibility and the customizability of the entire thing is wonderful. The next one is going to be, because I will never get tired of taking out Corpo Scum, Cyberpunk 2077. And anything cyberpunk in general. Like, I will go back and learn the old game systems just to play anything remotely bringing down the corporations, because I'm very anti-capitalist, despite the fact that I'm stuck in the society, right?
Right.
And then let's see, for something a little bit lighter, so every once in a while you have a fun time, I'm going to go ahead and grab 2 of them. I'm going to go ahead and grab Morkborg and Death in Space.
Those are pretty good.
So you just shoved them together. Okay, I'll let you get away with that.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, come on.
All right, is Cyberpunk 2077 and Shadowrun, are they considered the same game or not?
They have the same theme, but I think they're different systems entirely.
Yeah, I would say Shadow Dark. I just love the world building. I always have. Cyberpunk 2077 is impressive though. It is very, very sexy. I would say Shadow Dark, Shadowrun. The third would probably be, and this is like stupid, Mahjong, man. I could play Mahjong. Like, if I had like my limbs removed, it's so simple, but it is such a strategy thing that Mahjong, even like I find myself, there's a lot of comfort in playing some of like the really, you know, Go. It's like a simple game, but it's so complex. And so I want some old school, and I want some new school. So I'm not bored. And that's,
did you take both of those games as one, or did you take the 2 as individuals? Because you might have one more on the table here you could put in.
Shit, I don't know.
If she doesn't want it, I'll take Vampire.
Wait, are you guys going to be on the same island? Maybe we could do that.
Yeah. No, Delta Green. Delta Green, if you haven't, is probably one of the darkest systems I've ever seen. And it is basically, what horrible thing would you do to save the world? People are going to die, be traumatized. Like, horrible things are going to happen. Horrible things. You know,
does that sound like something I know you'd like, Liz?
I know, dark as pitch. But you know, I every time I look at their stuff and my math is not strong enough for their systems. I look at some of their roles and I'm like, shit, no. But I love the world. I love the design. I love everything about it. Always have.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a sucker for, like, I'm not naming all the things, but The Quiet Earth is something that I think is really interesting.
Really
And-
good.
And for me, that would have to be in my pack. And I'll tell you why. When I've been going through school, both my bachelor's and my master's, I found that gaming something like that, nice, quiet, gentle, allowed my brain all this space. And it was just perfect, you know? So I got to have something like that in my mix for sure.
Yeah.
It's just a fantastic game, but it is quiet and peaceful. And it's like that when I was in my bachelor's, I played, do you guys remember on the Wii, The Endless Ocean? Did you ever play that?
No,
You
I
just
never
swim
played it, but I
around.
did.
You
Yeah.
swim around and you try and take pictures of fish. I didn't even bother with the pictures. I just swam around for hours, just swimming around, come up for oxygen, swim around. It works, you know. That's got to be one of the three for me.
I
Something
think
like
that was the success of Wingspan. It
Oh, yeah.
was out and during COVID. So while everybody was afraid to leave their house, they could go look at birds.
You know what? I agree.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's a good one. So I think we've answered this, but in our description for this panel, one thing it said is, why do you think they're more popular than ever? Why do you think right now is the time? Liz, you've said it a bunch of times. Now is the gamer time. Now is the time. Why is it that this has all become acceptable and popular? Any thoughts? I mean, because we've got a million distractions out there.
I have a lot of thoughts. I will let John go first.
All right, fantastic. That's good, because as soon as I go, you're going to say something and I'm going to look like the stupid one. So that's fine. No, I think what has really helped drive this, at least from what I've seen, is for the longest time with the way that COVID hit us and everyone was stuck, a lot of this stuff started picking up because it's very easy to play a tabletop game or an RPG game on the virtual tabletop environment while still staying connected to people. And I think that really helped. Then once that started happening, it started picking up in pop culture with things like Stranger Things and Dungeons and Dragons. It really brought it back into the mainstream because it was a way to stay connected. Even the people that were used to playing single player games started reaching out and like playing more things. Like, as much as I stay away from things like Call of Duty, but I was an Apex kid, right? I love Apex Legends. It's dumb, it's goofy, it's a first person shooter, but it's interesting and you get to work in a team environment. And sometimes you run into the absolute like worst of the worst trolls, but you do get to stay connected with people in these games. Like, you build new friendships, not just in like character, but also outside of it. You get to meet people in the industry if you actually decide to go into it. It makes things so much easier. So with the tailspin that we all went through with COVID, finding a spot where you could still not have to just be alone in your apartment and isolated, this was the easiest outlet for a lot of people, I think.
You're not going to look stupid. That was a great answer.
Yeah, absolutely great answer. And I think what I'm going to say is the origin story to your epilogue. And so one of the things about COVID that became very evident to me in the geek communities was, and I mean all of the geek communities, if you were a geek, you fared better off. And there was one big reason. If we're sitting here and the world's on fire, and if you only had one narrative, those people fared harder. As whether it is a religious book, regardless of faith, that is one narrative. When you are a geek, you have 8,000. That is not to say that everything is going to give you a path, but your brain could use that as an exploration of, okay, well, what happens if we don't have any water? Well, all right, well, then I can think about this thing and this possible thing. And we thought of Judge Dredd and Mega Cities and the Underdark. And we had all of these things to pull from, right? So we go, this payday has staved out of the fact that in the 70s, when this all started, those people now have kids. So as the world becomes and changes and becomes more unstable and climate change happens, we are teaching games as a way of survival mentally. So gamers are showing their kids a path through life through games. That said, and this is something that, we'll stay away from politics for the most part, but there is a political divide in this country, and 50%, in my experience, 50% of gamers are conservative. So in that same vein, where we have gamers, regardless of political affiliation, are teaching their children about the future together. And so this framework is not only becoming a way for children to learn survival narratives, it is a way for us to interact with people that we sit there, and everybody, the election's coming up and everybody is going, how is it like this? The only way that we can sort of have a calm, civilized conversation is through games. So they're providing for us a framework that we desperately need now for 8,000 reasons. And it is also affordable, things you can share, reusable, teaches literacy. And there's another thing. I got to work with Last Game Board a couple of years ago, and the head of it, Shale, her immigrant story was tied to gaming, because you've come over, you don't speak the language, you're trying to find people, you're trying to learn the language, you're trying to learn interaction. She did it through games. And I'm finding more and more that story has come up, is gaming is, while we say it's a framework for survival and narrative and exploration and camaraderie and community, that counts for everybody, regardless of experience.
Very good. Wow, things went intelligent here. What's up?
Yeah, I got some Mjolnir mouth, man. Like, Thor's hammer comes out when I open it.
I gotta write something here. There we go.
PR people.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I actually think it's really interesting, because you are right. John's was the epilogue.
Yeah.
I think about this one a lot, because I think, now I'm the marketing side, you're the PR side, I'm the marketing side, but this is the kind of stuff I think about a lot. And I think about why people act the way they do and fall for things the way they fall, or, whatever. And I feel that the time is right, because number one, a lot of the stigma is gone. I remember hanging out with millennials for the first time, like regularly, and to them, Saturday night's game night. They didn't, and game night would be, we're going to play a bunch of board games, really cool board games this week. The next week, hey, everybody bring your dice. We're going to do a one shot. And I'd be like, wow. I mean, I couldn't drag my friends into it.
The kids are going to be all right.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I do also think it has to do with the properties, like I said, I'm getting bullied for liking Star Trek back then. But if you were to say to kids now, like, hey man, we're going to have a Star Trek game, they'd be right on it. Like, oh, we're playing Star Trek. Cool. I know what it is. I get how it works. Let's play the game. I think that's really interesting. And LARPing is the same. It's an extension of that, because back when we did it, man, that was satanic panic time.
Have you ever, one of the people I worked with was Bergschneider, which was the European LARPing, which is completely different.
Right.
And it is much more about storytelling and character building and all of those things. So this is the first time, and we there's a whole other thing, like you're talking about Star Trek, right? As the world evolves, and gender fluidity and sexual identity and LGBTQ-ness is acceptable, these narratives allow a space for exploration that, no, I'm not comfortable coming out yet, but I am comfortable exploring that in a gaming space where I'm safe with my friends, and nobody's going to get my ass kicked over it. So, but and in that same regard, and this is where I think gaming could be like a perfect chef's kiss tool of understanding other alternatives. So people, this is a day and age of pronouns. Why do we have to do pronouns? So back in the day, you had the alpha male. You knew who the alpha male was.
Right.
People get upset about pronouns because that is the narrative. When you start talking to somebody, the hierarchy. That's why it works. That's why it's important. We are seeing people, we are establishing, we are safe frameworks. And gaming has always been a safe space for that. And now that we have pronouns and explorations of these things, that's another reason that this is just, it has become so much more than just a game. I know.
I think that's a great way to end it. Very good. All right, you guys. John, what's the best place for people to interact with you?
The easiest way to find all of my stuff is biscuit10rpg.com, but I am at biscuit10rpg on all the things except for the artist formerly known as Twitter. I left there a while back for reasons.
But as did many, yes.
And Drive Through RPG, just look up Biscuit10rpg. You can find all of our current releases.
That's why I called him Mr. Biscuits. Biscuit 10 RPG.
John,
that's where he's
really
at.
Nice to meet you.
Same to you.
And Liz, what's the best place for people to interact with you?
SphinxPR.com.
There you go. You need your PR business. You talk to Liz. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being on. I'm going to do wrap up business. Thanks again. And we've got one more hour of HurriCon to go where we're going to be talking geek stuff like we haven't been already. John, thank you so much. Liz, thank you so much.
See you in a minute.
See you in a hot minute. All right, business. So if you donate, if you go to Twitch and you donate during this event, or you're watching afterwards and you donate, 20% of anything that's coming in because of HurriCon is going to go to beloved Asheville. They are boots on the ground. They're putting the money right into the people that are doing the stuff to get people through this tragedy. I happen to know somebody whose son-in-law is very involved, and she said this is the greatest way to help them out. So, beloved Asheville, you can go to their website and donate directly there, or if you donate to us, we take 20% of anything that comes in here, and we give it there immediately. So, there you go with that. This is HurriCon 2024, brainchild of Liz's about a week ago. So, what you're seeing is the result of, oh my God, Scramble. And then the next panel that we have coming up is the Geeking Point. And we're going to be talking about kind of that critical moment when you became a geek. It's not dissimilar to the last two conversations we had, because both John and Liz and then the writers that were on earlier all kind of had that moment of reflection. So we're going to have a whole hour of that with some really fun guests coming up. So thank you so much. Hang out. We'll be back in 2. Wait, I should do this so that it looks like what was that, the dating game or one of those? We'll be back in 2. All right, thank you.
Oh.
All right, we're back. Welcome to HurriCon. This is the third hour. This is the third and final hour. I'm waiting for a few more guests to show up in our feed here. And of course, my friend Alil is going to be on, and he didn't read the email I sent with the link. So expect some chops getting busted when Alil gets in here. So this is our third hour. We're doing the Geeking Point. Before we jump into that, if you haven't seen, if you do make a donation during HurriCon, 20% of everything that comes in will go to beloved Asheville to help with hurricane support. And if you don't do a donation now, that's fine. You can go right to beloved Asheville. Just Google it, and they take donations right there on the site. Then 100% of it goes to them. So it's up to you how you want to handle that. We have everybody except one here. So I am not going to screw around. I'm going to bring everybody into the Geeking Point. Add to stage, add to stage, add to stage, add to stage. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
There we go. Somebody said hi. Hello, Elliot. Okay, so who we have with us right now, and we're waiting on one more person. And here, let's actually make it look like this. Boom. This is what happens when I'm startled by you. Oh, God, Elliot's here. So we have with us next to me. Why don't you actually introduce yourselves? Next to me is...
Am I next to you? I guess.
Yeah, you are. It's like that
little...
Brady Bunch thing. I should have put you in the middle. You're Alice.
Am I?
Yeah, you're more Schultzy, her weird.
I don't have any hair. I wish I had her gray hair.
How do you know she's not bald? That's just so cruel of you. Although
maybe she is now. I don't know. Is she still alive, Elliot? You know? Is Alice still alive from the Brady Bunch? You would know that.
Tanya, do you know? Is Alice?
I don't know.
Man.
No, I think she passed away.
There you go. So,
Right,
I knew.
Well, now we've been mean to a dead woman. That's wonderful. All right, so Alil, tell people who you are and what you do.
I'm Alil Kanitsa. I do a podcast and a YouTube show called The Geeks that we've been doing now for 11 years, if you can believe it. I've been doing shows with Rob. Yeah, just an all-around geeky kind of guy.
Yeah, I couldn't tell from your background. Tanya, how about you? Tell people who you are and what you do.
I am Tanya Todd. I am an author, actress, and activist. I co-host the Femme On podcast, where I talk about activism and just pop culture and media, television, books from a feminist point of view. I'm a frequent guest on Comics in Motion, where we talk about Marvel, Star Wars, comic books, all kinds of fun, geeky stuff. And I directed my first short film last year.
Oh, hey, congratulations.
Congrats.
And you have a new book out, too. What's your book?
I do. I have Comics Lit, which is right here. I think. There we are. It is an essay collection that talks about the value of comics as a form of high art and makes a lot of comparisons between classic literature and their more modern incarnations, which are in comic books.
Very nice. Yes, and it's well worth your time reading. And also, I'm gonna do a little pimping because it's the same company I work for. You can buy it at fourhorsemanpublications.com and get 10% off right now. So pick it up if you're a comics fan. It's a great read. Even if you're not, it's a great read. It's just really interesting. So Tanya, congratulations on both the film and the book.
Thank you.
All right, and then let's go down below me here. Liz, tell people who you are, what you do.
I'm Liz Fulda. I have run Sphinx PR for over 2 decades. I started with Geek PR, and that is all of geek. And then a couple of years ago, I started branched out, and now I do literally everything, which has been a lot of fun, including augmented reality, fashion designer of note. Never in a million years thought I would be writing a press release for Miami Swim Week, but here we are. But my first love will always be geek. And I want emails from everybody because I need to be hooking you up.
There you go. That's what you want to hear. And finally, last but not least, Horatio Sanz is, Elliot, why don't you tell people who you are, what you do?
My name's Elliot Serrano. I have the title of Chicago's King of Geeks.
I was going to say, you better get that title out there.
Not a title I gave myself, not at all. I was given that title by a friend in media, Lawrence Holmes of NBC5 and The Score Sports Radio. I'm a former newspaper columnist and features writer for the Chicago Red-Eye and Chicago Tribune, former fixture on WGN Radio. Currently, former comic book writer, having worked on The Adventures of Grumpy Cat, Homies, and Army of Darkness. Then I'm currently a podcast host and part-time radio host on a WCPT. And I know Liz knows me. Liz, you've got my email. I get your emails all the time. Really good to see you again.
Yes. Absolutely.
And pretty much. Right now I'm currently been co-hosting from time to time on Caffeinated Comics, which can be found on a competing podcast network. But we just wrapped up a couple series, the MCU review, when we were talking about the different Marvel movies up until Spider-Man No Way Home, and then things got in the way, as well as Top Men and Indiana Jones podcast, where we discussed all the Indiana Jones films, which was the last thing that I worked on, produced, and hosted, and it's gotten a lot of traction too. I still have indie fans on my socials asking about it, so it's been fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Tanya, I saw you perked up when you said he was on Caffeinated Comics. I have a feeling you might need to do a guesting, right?
Well, it's an awesome title. I love alliteration. And then it was like, yes, one more connection. Thank you.
We'll have you on, Tanya. We'll have you on.
Yeah. See, a lot of times people say I'm full of it, but I'm actually full of, making connections. That's really.
It's a gift.
Did you see? Lil rolled his eyes. So you're in the lion's den, Tanya, because these are all my buddies here. We definitely talk smack, so just be prepared for a little bit of that. And I am going to also tell you there is another podcast I'm going to connect you to if you're interested. It's called TV Herstory, and it is TV through the feminist view.
Ooh,
and it's really good. It's really good. She does an awesome job. As many of you have been, that was part of one of our podcast marathons way back. So she's been on 2 of them, I think. So, okay. So what we're talking about today, this is the Geeking Point. And it's very similar to another show that we used to do called Geek by Kid, but we're the kids. We're going to talk about what got us to this point. I want to start there. Let's start with a real tough one. Was there one particular property or thing that made it all happen for you, where you went, that's it, I am now a geek, I will get beat up, I don't care, this is it? Was there one thing? Alil, go ahead, you're dying to say it.
No, I'm not dying. It's behind me, right? Like my entire wall is
wallpaper.
Spider-Man
He
wall.
loves wallpaper. It's his geeky. No, go ahead.
It's true. I did wallpaper all this in spider webs, if you can see, to put my comics up. No, it started as a child, as an infant. Like my mom was a Spider-Man fan. She was a young mother. She would read me Spider-Man stories before I could read. My first TV watching was Nicholas Hammond's live action Spider-Man on reruns on in Chicago, Fox 32. And then Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, the cartoon. It was all Spider-Man all the time for me. And for the most part, it still is. It's, Spider-Man and Spider-Man adjacent stuff. But I've always loved the character. I always, my mom would give me spoon feed me insights about Peter Parker and his struggles and, what he had to go through. And I always attached to that. Yes, the dynamicness of Spider-Man doing what a spider can and all that kind of stuff. But I always loved Peter. Peter's taking care of Aunt May. Peter's worried about this. Peter can't afford this. And especially growing up in the city, we didn't have a lot, so it's like those kind of stories really kind of had me look at things through different lenses. It's like, look at this guy. He's not Batman. He's not an alien coming from another. He's a regular kid who is going through similar struggles. Yeah, I wasn't a teenager at that point, but I can see that. And Spider-Man was always there. It was always that kind of focal point in my geekdom. Like whenever I even dipped out, because, I'm an old man and, we all dip out of it and, kind of, put it to the closet a bit, but Spider-Man was always kind of there. There was always a little spot for Spider-Man. All my friends knew I was a big Spider-Man fan. I had comics and stuff. I had a couple of little, action figures. It wasn't as like this now, but it was always Spider-Man. And then that Tobey Maguire movie just catapulted everything.
Before we go to the next person, why don't you tell people what you made your wife do on your first date?
No pressure.
Didn't you tell me you made her watch Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends?
Well, it wasn't our first date, but it was. She did. Firestar's.
Yeah, I was thinking of something way kinkier than that. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was.
I'm a
black cat
wholesome
outfit.
guy, Elliot.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm.
Okay, he made her dress up as Spider-Man. It gets really weird from there. We're gonna just leave
She
that
does
alone.
have a Spider-Man costume, but not for anything weird. It was just,
Right, why does it have to be weird?
Well, no, I'm just saying.
No, you don't know a
these
little.
guys
It
are
has to be
talking
weird
about
if it's a little.
kinkiness, So I'm, didn't want to make it that, but no, it's so yes, I made her watch the episode called "A Firestar Is Born" multiple times on VHS because she had a Family Dollar down the street from her house, and I remember us going, "You go rent a video." Us old people we used to have to go to a video store. And they had that, and I'm like, oh my God, we're getting this. And almost every weekend we would go pick up a video and I would add that to it and we would watch A Firestar Is Born. So
Wow.
That's when I
Okay.
knew the fact that she stuck
Right.
around watching that like, yeah, I
He's
have
the
to.
one.
Isn't that
Yeah.
like grooming and you were training her? Isn't that really?
You know what?
There's
I probably did that a lot, getting her into horror movies as well and all this other stuff. But no, she
Oh,
loves all
wait.
that stuff.
She was of age, right? I mean, when you
Yeah,
first-
she's older than
okay.
me. She's
When we start hearing this whole grooming thing, then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay.
Really fast. Like, wow.
It's Rob picking on me about things, but no, she's a year older than me, and
But you should be used to that being a Spider-Man fan, right?
That's right.
very true, very true.
I think I'm your Eddie Brock. So
You wish.
so Tanya, let's go to you for that question. What was the entry point? What was that one?
I started with DC because Batman is one of my fictional crushes. Batman, Dracula, Loki. I like tall, dark, and broody. But Batman introduced me to Catwoman, and she was the one who secured me for life. And I'm not saying that I don't appreciate other comic books, but she's the one who made me, say it loud, I'm Catwoman and I'm proud.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very good. So who introduced you to comics?
I really don't remember any particular person introducing me to comics. I think it was just that I was introduced to books and libraries and bookstores. Like that was always big in my family, and I was allowed to explore where I wanted. And so I started with actually Archie comics were the first comics that I read. And there are advertisements in those, and eventually you're just in the comic section and you see other things, and Batman caught my eye. But then I was introduced to Catwoman, and it was like, I love him, but I want to be her.
There you go. There you go. How about you, Liz?
this is going to sound really, it's not a cop out. It's actually quite alarming. I got started, and it's pretty infamous. So the same night that I read Dark Knight Returns, and it wasn't that I felt like I was Batman, but like something had changed in my DNA, and I knew that. And I started playing D&D the same night. So I never had the same experience that other people had of falling in love with a character. You know, I fell in love with all the characters and I wanted all of it. So I had such an access because of some very, you know, small twists of fate that, like, in the same 5 years was 2000 AD, Dark Knight Returns, D&D, ElfQuest, and I never fell in love with one character or one world.
I have to ask, when you say Dark Knight Returns, are you talking about the book?
Yes.
Okay.
No, the leather bound, the foil.
Yes.
And like, but so I was sort of envious of my friends who are like, you know, I'm into Rogue, I'm into Wolverine, I'm into, you know, whatever. And I was like, I'm so hungry. I want it all. So that was my, I'm Thanos, man. I'm hungry.
You're just collecting like crazy.
I was absolutely hooked on the narrative aspect of things. So from, you know, the scorched earth to, you know, a far off planet, I wanted it. I was hooked on all of it. So.
Well, actually, Liz, I do think on the last hour you actually mentioned a person, though, that was critical in that moment.
Yes. Oh, my mother. My mother was a weirdo. And I'm, you know, in the 70s, my mother was playing D&D. So that when I'm sitting there reading Dark Knight Returns, it's because I was too young to play D&D yet. And I'm sitting in her gaming group, and the person who ran the gaming group had the comics.
Okay. I didn't know where that piece fit together. Got it.
Yes, that's the pieces. So I'm sitting, you know, it's doing the whole, the kids are going to play in the corner while the grown-ups game. And then it became, you know, oh, they had this amazing collection and I could just go through it. So I wanted it all.
All right, Elliot. I'm so interested to see what you say.
Yeah, me too.
What was that point?
Well, it's funny because it kind of goes in stages for me. First, I mean, I grew up in primarily a Spanish speaking household. My parents, you know, moved to Chicago from Puerto Rico when they were like 18, 19 years old. Met here, fell in love, raised a family here. I was their firstborn son, and growing up in also primarily a Hispanic neighborhood, and going to a Spanish-speaking church. Spanish was my first language growing up, and my father, you know, was concerned about me assimilating and wanting me to learn how to read English. So he bought me comic books as a kid, and I remember he'd buy me. They've brought them back lately at the local Ollie's clearance store. The multi-packs, you know, you get like 3.
Oh yeah, where you get like 3.
Yeah, he would buy.
You always want to see what's in that middle one.
Yeah, you never knew. You always saw what was in the front and the back, but you never knew what was in the middle. So my dad would just start buying those. Like he'd go to the grocery store and he'd grab a pack off the rack and then just bring them home to me, and it'd be on. And he helped me to learn to read in English. He wanted me to read English. I think my earliest childhood memories were Marvel comics. It was a Luke Cage Power Man comic book. Is one of the first comics I ever owned. It's like I remember the cover is Luke Cage and some vampire. Like you talk about Dracula. I think Dracula was in it, or some Dracula type character trying to bite Luke Cage, and Luke Cage is like, you know, sweet Christmas or something like that. You know? You know, you can't break his skin. So the vampire's like, what are you going to do?
Maybe it was Morpheus.
Yeah, could have been. I really liked that was another one too, because when the Morbius, the living vampire, would come along, I always thought that was a real interesting take on the whole vampire mythos. So, and then that comic book would sadly meet an end when my little brother decided he wanted to make a collage and took a pair of scissors to it and just started cutting out all the little comic panels and stuff to make a collage of his own. So. Mm-hmm. Then after that, I think I got an Iron Fist comic. And it's funny, I couldn't get into DC back then because the artwork didn't appeal to me like the Marvel books did. Like I'd read the Superman comics, and that's when Kurt Swan was still the artist, and his artwork didn't jazz me. Batman 2. I know a lot of people who love Jim Aparo. He's like the definitive Batman artist. I couldn't get into it. Yes, Liz, Dark Knight Returns. When I read that blew me away because that was Frank Miller at the height of his powers.
Yeah.
But then on a parallel track to that, there was this movie that came out. I don't know if you've heard of it. That back at that time was just like this independent film that everyone got into, but now it's like a freaking marketing machine. The irony is that, I got into Star Wars, but not through the movies, to be honest. Again, it was back to the comics because my dad would buy me the Star Wars comic books.
Sure.
And I actually read the entire Marvel comic series before I ever went to the theater to see the movie. I was completely spoiled. I knew everything that was going to happen in the movie because, again, my family, we were of modest means, so we couldn't afford to go to the movies all the time. And all my friends in school, my friends at church, the pastor's son at the church I went to had seen Star Wars multiple times because they were doing fairly well. And he would quote lines to me all the time. I'm like, oh, for crimey's sake. But I would read Star Wars. I read the comics before I ever saw the movies. And that really cemented it for me. That's when I even got into reading prose. I think after reading the Star Wars comics, the first prose science fiction novel I read was Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers. And then that got me into just reading prose, not just comics. And then at that point, I just fell in love with the written word and reading everything, not just comic books. And then because I wanted to learn how to speak proper English, I watched the cartoons. There was Spider-Man.
Dad, I'm studying, right?
Yeah.
I'm not watching cartoons. I'm studying.
Yeah. Cartoons and on newscasts, the local newscasts. I would watch, the newscasters when they would read the news. That's how I learned proper pronunciation and diction and those things. And I became obsessed with how they talk to the camera and those things. So it was just I'm sorry?
It shows.
You think?
You did. Yes, I do. I think that I now I understand. Like I understand your presence. It's cool.
Thank you. And then of course there were a lot of local people, in media. Bill Jackson, for those who remember him, he had a show where he would show cartoons, read letters from the kids who wrote in, and he would tell. He had a bit where he would draw a cartoon character on a big board while he was talking about it. That got me fascinated with storytelling and drawing and all those things. So it just thing after thing would just seep into me as I was watching. Then finally, I realized my father's influence on me is so deep and so subconscious. When Matt Smith took over as the 11th Doctor, I just fell in love with his portrayal of the character. I thought, even though David Tennant was like the guy for me, Matt Smith, there was something about Matt Smith's portrayal that really appealed to me. And it wasn't until later I read an interview with him that he said that his take on the Doctor was influenced by John Pertwee's.
Yeah,
Pertwee, right?
Yeah.
And I was going, oh, that's why. Because the first time I ever saw Doctor Who, I walked into the living room. My dad, again, sitting in the living room by himself. He's got Channel 11 on, and he's watching Doctor Who. And who happens to be the doctor at that point?
Pertwee.
And I remember going to my dad and going, this, again, Spanish speaking. I mean, he doesn't speak a lot of English. He's watching an American or a British television show where all they speak is English. And I went to him, I went to him and go, why are you watching it? Not like saying like thinking, how do you really understand this? Why are you watching this? All he did was turn to me and go, why are you watching this? He turns to me and goes, because it's good. And they're going, boom, got it right there. And they're going, all right. So it's like, I think there was like a genetic bond there. My geekhood was influenced by my father, and that's in the end. All the little bits that came, he instilled in me. So, and I know a lot of folks, can say that too. The Spider-Man, I'm going to tell you something. When I would read those Spider-Man comics, it would always drive me nuts that I remember one particular issue when Spider-Man has to deal with the Vulture and he's got the flu. And the Vulture's giving him a run for his money, but it wouldn't be as bad if Spider-Man was like 100% that day.
Right.
Or he's got to fight the Rhino, and he's got his arm in a cast because he broke it. You're like, man, it's like he doesn't catch a break. What the? And you relate right there.
Yeah. He has allergies like a normal person. It's like, it's always the greatest thing. It's like, I ran out of allergy meds. I need some decongestant.
So I'm going to blow your mind. This is kind of what I figured out, like the whole Marvel DC thing. Marvel are gods trying to be human stories, and DC is humans trying to be God stories. So once you have that figured out, then like when you see a friend and you're like, are you into Marvel DC? Like it literally, it's the most wonderful icebreaker because it tells you everything about the person. You have this is just my experience. I'm not saying I don't judge anyone. Men primarily are Marvel, women are primarily DC because it is a how people are given a framework to navigate the world. And so guys have their issues and it's Spidey and oh my God, how many guys are Spidey fans? And because he's just, it was a way for guys to go, all right, shit, this being thing, how do I do this? And Spidey was there for you. And for women, we needed somebody who was like just trying to be more than, based off our place in society. So it's almost become the whole. When I was younger, I saw the Marvel DC thing as like fandom, and now I'm like, no, that was a framework, just like Elliot's talking about. These stories gave us frameworks to how to navigate the world.
It's interesting you said all that, Tanya. I was thinking about you. I think your Catwoman thing is she's not a god, but she's a mortal that completely can navigate in the god sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be why, as opposed to like, once again, it's why Thor always felt weird in the Marvel thing. It's like, okay, he's a god. It did feel weird. For you, it might have been that attraction of like, she's human, but she's kicking ass.
It's also, we live in a patriarchal society. She's also female and she's kicking ass.
And she's strong.
He's flipping the switch like, okay, all of this is distracting to you. I'm going to use that to my advantage rather than hide myself because I don't want you attacking me. I'm going to show you what you think you want to see. And that is going to be your downfall because you think I don't have anything here because you're too busy looking here.
Yep. That's so interesting. The other thing that I thought when you guys were talking, I didn't get it from everybody, so it might be interesting to explore this. That inflection point, Alil's talking about his mom and his Elliot with his dad. I wonder if this this word is going to be overused, but I'm going to say it. I wonder if it was a way of dealing with our personal trauma, and it doesn't need to be trauma that we're talking about, but our personal lot in life that we were dealing with, and that was a space that was uniquely ours, because like I remember a big inflection point for me was 4:30 movie, watching Doctor Who on PBS at 11 o'clock at night when I was supposed to be asleep. Don't tell my parents, they might be watching. It was all that stuff. And like, I remember seeing Star Wars and every kid I knew, it was like, all the boys wanted to be Luke Skywalker and all the girls wanted them to be Han Solo. And I remember wanting
not wrong.
I wanted all of it. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it was just the whole thing was like, man, I want to live there.
No, you want an Anakin, someone so devoted to you that he's going to just snap at the possibility of not being with you. That kind of loyalty.
That's what I have with Alil. Now, no, I'm kidding. So I wonder, do you guys think that is a valid thing, that maybe it was like, and I don't want to say trauma, but it could be our trauma, or the reason it got in is because of that need, and it gave us something to grip onto.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
our escape, right? From some of the reality that we were dealing with. It might not have been trauma, but it wasn't the greatest of realities that we had to deal with on a day in and day out basis. So we got to read these pages, watch these shows, and live in that moment it's why. It's why, I still love bad movies and popcorn movies, because it's these people are putting out entertainment for that purpose, right? For you to kind of let go for that little time and get away from the hard day of work, to get away from that. Elliot talking about his dad loving a good show, watching Doctor Who, that maybe he didn't understand it fully, but he knew it was good, because and it's just that escapism. And it's not even set in trauma, it's just set in giving us that mental break that we all need. Because sometimes we don't know how to take that break. Even as children, as teens, as adults, we just don't know how to take those breaks.
Wasn't it like, Ty, you'd agree with me on this, right? It's a form of connection, right? We talk about comic books and all that. They're modern day mythologies, and these stories have been passed down over the centuries, right? It's all just a reimagining of stories that give us a chance to come together as a tribe, to share these stories, relate to each other through these stories. Maybe it's not always because bad things happen. Maybe good things happen. We love when good things happen to bring us together. Look at Ted Lasso, right?
Yeah.
That's another. It's a story in itself. It's a story about overcoming odds. It's a story about finding family and those things. That's not too dissimilar from anything you might find in the comics and all. But I think we as people are driven by stories. We want to hear stories. We want to tell stories. We want to share stories. It brings us together.
Well, it's how we relate, right?
The stories we tell is the way that we trust each other. And so when you're telling a story, you are revealing something of yourself. And myth, and we're all talking about the same certain time frame in this world, right? Clash of the Titans. Clash of the Titans was the modern.
You better mean that original Clash of the Titans, not that.
No,
remake.
there is no other one. I watched the remake.
That didn't happen. What are you even
I died a little inside.
Because that original one kind of owned me, I gotta say.
Yeah, it owned all of us, but in the same. And this is the thing, right? So Clash of the Titans comes out, and it gave pop culture a framework for accepting myth, and so it starts there, and then everybody goes, "Oh wait, comics," and we don't talk about comics and like first of all, our parents, any kind of interaction with our parents, of course, that's a huge thing. But we don't talk about the subversive media of comic books. You are holding a world in your hands, literally. And there is a safety in that. You turn a page, you don't like something in it, you can close the book. But in that, the thing that when we put a comic in a child's hands, that we are giving them a world that they can navigate, control, a framework for the world at large. It is a subversive media. We can put a kid in front of a TV show. That's one thing. But the tactile nature of the medium is what just breaks people. And we were talking about gaming in the previous panel, and gaming is another one. Where you're turning a page and rolling dice, and there is a control. And that method, when it comes to narrative and acceptance and putting that, that's crack. That's narrative crack that just changes everything.
So did you bring me on this panel so that I could recruit them to write essays for a future installment of Comic Flit? Because I'm just going, I need their words in essay form because people need to read this. They need to hear this.
Tanya, I am the Vice President of Marketing and Growth for the company. So yes, you have called me out. You've all been recruited, and Liz, we're partners here. We're friends. I also did it for you to get everybody's emails. So
you are and this, you guys. This is a proof of concept. This was an idea. The world is changing. The world is so far different than it was, but geek is changing, and we have to change as geeks to continue it. And, you know, one of the things that blew my mind, and, you know, we're talking about these origin stories in comics, and I don't mean to waylay the conversation, but I think you guys have a good kick out of it, right? I come from, obviously, I have a weird geek background. I'm also from a mixed family. I have a niece, and it's San Diego Comic-Con, and, you know, the world is looking at San Diego Comic-Con, and I get a message from my sister, and she's like, yeah, you know, she's at a Comic-Con, my niece, and like, San Diego, oh my God, I didn't know, I gotta hook her up. No, she wasn't there at all. If you've ever heard of something called Dream Convention, it's in Austin. Dream is the first Black comics and anime show.
Yeah.
Anime and gaming show. And so we are seeing, and you know, one of the things that's been coming up with other conventions is it has become a class issue. They're expensive. There is a huge barrier of entry. And we as geeks, if we want to continue to have all of these conversations that we are having, they cannot continue in the space that we currently have, and we have to create something different. So we'll do it together.
Let's do
Very
it.
true.
I agree. I mean, especially when it comes to, we put so much focus. I mean, well, what's the complaint now going on about the major conventions like San Diego Comic-Con or even C2E2? It's like, why aren't there comic people here? It's all about the television shows and the movies. And don't get me wrong, I think the TV shows, the movies, the video games, those are all great entry points, you know, for that type of exposure to that type of the genre. Would you call it a genre or a medium?
We know what you mean. We'll call it a genre.
Genre.
It's a format,
right.
But yeah.
But like superheroes and fantasy and all, which, as you guys know, like there was a time, like when we would say, it wasn't that long ago when you called yourself a geek, or the term geek was considered a bit, a pejorative. You know, same as nerd was considered pejorative. Right. And I remember when I was covering FangoCon, it was about 10 years ago or so, and I was talking to Tom Savini, you know, the big special effects dude. Oh yeah. You know, and interviewing him, and I was like, yeah, we are at FangoCon, and, you know, we have a whole bunch of horror movie geeks here. And I'm saying, hey, this is cool. We're all a bunch of geeks. And he goes, what'd you say? What'd you call us? And he was legitimately offended. He thought I was insulting everybody by calling them geeks. So it wasn't that long ago. I mean, but let's be honest.
Did you put your crown on and say, but I'm king of the geeks? See, it's cool.
I didn't get that yet. I hadn't gotten it yet. But it's just like young, like larval form geek media Elliot before he, you know, comes out of his pupil stage. Stage?
I'm getting sick. Stop, Elliot.
I'm imagining you as a beautiful butterfly now. So that's
I'm like a moth. But
hey, moths are cool too.
Mothman. That's me. By the way, you know, I'm Mothman, just so you know. I'm Mothman. So, but I will, and maybe this is gonna bother some folks, but I mean, yes, I call myself a geek. Yes, king of geeks. I think it's great. It's widely accepted. I don't even think it's so much geek culture anymore. It's gone from being a culture to being a market. I mean, let's be honest. That's why you find that you even find anime themed shirts, you know, at
in Walmart, Target.
Well, it's shifted. It's just pop culture now.
It is.
The umbrella just got huge.
It's not even pop culture. It's culture. Like right. I live in Orlando now, and basically I'm in Walt Disney World every other day, and every adult, huh?
Oh, I hate you. You know, the last time I've been to Disney World.
Why did you? Why? You know, you should.
Again, that's talking about pricing things out and being elitist. There, man.
Well, that's a whole different story. But like everyone, even around, like I'm going at the grocery store, and 99 out of 100 people are wearing geek shirts.
Yeah,
like it's insane. Like it's you know, you see it. I've never seen so many cars decked out, so many things. I mean, people are driving around in a damn Ecto 1. Like it's like,
but and what it's become is virtue signaling. Is that people are showing their character? I mean, this is all right. This is slightly a reach, but it's not. Geek is a narrative, visual representation of your pronouns. Like if someone has a certain hero, then they are telling you about them. And we are now we are so in a narrative age that we, you know, whether it's someone painting their nails or putting stickers on a laptop, we are trying to connect with each other in such a we're overwhelmed by stimulus, so we're trying to show each other as much about ourselves as fast as humanly possible, and we do it with geek.
It's true. It's like we're our own giant billboards, right? We're gonna, you know, if I see Elliot with the Star Wars shirt, I'd be like, hey, you know, what'd you think of Acolyte? You know, hey, what did you, you know, and
but
it happens.
the companies recognize that, though. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh,
when I put, I'll admit it, I put this on. I'm advertising for them. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm showing my, you know, my geek or whatever, but I'm also, you know, I'm. What did Marvel and Coca-Cola just do? They had that big ad campaign with the Marvel characters. That you could buy different Marvel characters that were on the cans and the bottles, and then you can.
I got Daredevil.
Yeah. Then they had the augmented reality app that you could boom, and then you can have, you know, Deadpool in your living room and stuff. But then they were offering like hoodies and sweatshirts that said Coca-Cola and Marvel. So now you're out there advertising their product.
Yeah, you're a walking billboard. That was something. If you see the movie Crumb, R. Crumb talks about that, and he says like, he says to his kid at one point, like, why are you a walking billboard for these things? So, but you know what? We are now. It's funny because I've actually gone kind of the opposite. For the longest time, I mean, Lil knows for sure because we did all that live at the Blue Box stuff. I always wore a geek T-shirt, and I was doing it with purpose to show, here's what I'm talking about, here's what I'm into, to like send the message. And now I find that they're sitting in the drawer, and I'm going with like just black. I'm Batman, and that's about it. No, I'm not.
No, not even close.
No.
All right. So
I'm his old uncle. Yeah.
This is going to narc you on like the character that I identified with. And this will tell you, and you're literally bringing up William Gibson's book, Pattern Recognition.
Yeah.
His main character, and yes, you have a cat in the background. His main character, Casey, was basically weaponized pattern recognition, which is my day job. And but she had an allergic reaction to brands. And that was how the brands could kind of say like, okay, this is going to work or not, because she would have a physical reaction to it. But she basically gave up on the brands, just like you're talking about. Like, we now have come so full circle that we're like, no, we're just going to have a plain uniform, something that we can maintain, something that we know. And so we're now finally kind of like having that part of our lives now of just, I don't want to be a billboard anymore.
Well, and it's funny because I find that I like it like under, so it's just for me. It's kind of funny. Like I'll wear like my wedding ring. We pawned our wedding rings to get something we really wanted, and she got one thing. I got the one ring. Okay. It's super cool, right? I wear that. I wear a Star Trek ring, and I wear a Star Wars ring. They're super cool, but nobody knows because they're just black. But if you look closely, you know, so it's like I've gone from wearing the T-shirt and wearing it outwardly to it hidden. I'm planning on getting a tattoo of the TARDIS as a tribute to my friend Chris, who passed away. You guys know him very well. In fact, Chris is making an appearance. There's the Chris puppet, who's always here. And I'm going to get that. But once again, nobody's going to see it. It's my fandom. It's personal. And that geekdom with Doctor Who is very personal because of my relationship with Chris. So great. Now I'm going to make all of us cry. Yeah, I know. So if you had to pick, now, Alil, you picked one property, and we talked about the entry point. If you had to pick, it's not fair. I want 3 properties. What are your 3 right now if you had to go to a desert island with 3 properties to keep you occupied? What would they be? That sucks as a question. I'm asking it.
I got to hear Tanya's
So in what medium? Right, like
I didn't put a restrictor on it, Alil. Come on, man.
So,
because what if it's a video game thing, or what if you're like,
well,
I have a Picasso book and that is my thing? Huh.
For my property, I would it would be, I mean, can I do Marvel in
No.
general? It has to be a character.
I want an IP. I want like the Spider-Man universe.
Okay,
Or
so Spider-Man, and then it would be Super Mario. I love all the Super Mario games. I'm obsessed with Nintendo. I have this whole other side of the wall here is Nintendo.
the other side is all my podcasts. It's really weird. Don't have
it is. I do have this big picture of Rob over here, just in an angelic form.
It just got very concerning here.
And then I would probably go with because I want to be very different, right? So I've got my Spider-Man, I've got my Super Mario, and then I would go with. Oh, it's tough. I would, because I could watch these movies over and over again, and I do Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street. All right.
If I'm stuck on a desert island, yeah.
I'm not going to push anybody. I want whoever's ready to say.
All right, I know. Flash Gordon. There is. I have watched.
Wow. Wait, the movie, the 80s movie, or in general, Flash Gordon?
80s movie. I'm sorry, that broke me. Like that I just talking about, just saying it. I'm a little happier. Killing Joke. That is just a masterpiece. Wow. That is a masterpiece of a comic, not the movie. And probably King in Yellow, the book.
Wow. Okay. There are two of you that haven't gone yet. Look at Elliot dishing it off to Tanya.
She went so specific.
She very narrowed it.
I had a bigger, I had a broader.
You go ahead.
I feel like I cheated.
But if you say Marvel,
give me
I'm
Super Mario. I've got 30 games. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Catwoman. All things Catwoman. Specifically, Batman Returns. Like, we'll start from there and then branch out everything involving that.
All right, that's an easy one.
I love Dracula. Like I love the movies. I love the book. I love other books that are about that. I'm actually writing a Dracula retelling right now. So
Tanya, I got a question. Is it vampires or is it Dracula?
I mean, if I can say vampires, we'll include that so I get some of the other vampires I love. But if I had to choose one vampire, it would be Dracula.
There you go. And what was the third one?
Ooh.
Catwoman, Dracula.
Well, I guess we have to go Loki because those are my three crushes: is Batman, Batman, Dracula, and Loki. And with Loki, I get a lot of the Marvel.
You didn't say Batman. You said
there
Catwoman.
Would be no Avengers if it weren't for Loki.
It's true.
It's true.
But then I get the Norse element as well, which I also enjoy.
You're just working all angles here, aren't you?
Meow.
Oh, nice. Well played. All right, Elliot.
Well, if I only get three.
You only get three.
Man, I can only do, I'll be honest. I'm going to surprise everyone. I'm not going to go, Star Wars wouldn't make it, to be honest.
So I'm glad you said that because I love Star Wars. You can't see because of the HurriCon thing, but I have the Star Destroyers right there. Like,
oh, wow. Don't get me wrong. I do love Star Wars. And as I said, I credit Star Wars for me wanting to read and all those things. But the reality is, too, is that the quality of the IP over time has been up and down, and it's not as, like, I would say the Harry Potter movies were more consistent in quality across the board than, let's say, all the Star Wars movies. So, yeah. But I'm not like the biggest Harry Potter fan, so I wouldn't go with that. Now, the Indiana Jones films, on the other hand, give me the Indiana Jones franchise. That'll take care of my need for that, for the movie adventure escapism stuff. I would want to fix my political activist nerd. I would need my box set of the West Wing, 7 seasons of the West Wing. Because Aaron Sorkin also makes me want to be a better writer. The fact that, his characters, when I remember watching that show when it first ran and thinking, the people who run our country are some of the smartest people in the world. There's no way I'm ever going to be that smart. I'd have to watch an episode multiple times to really understand what they were talking about. And it made me think that, when people work together in government, that government can be better. So that would be my TV sit. And then for my books, my all-time favorite science fiction series, The War Against the Chitaur by David Gerrold, the former Star Trek writer. He's got 5 books out now, and he's continuing. He's like the George R.R. Martin of science fiction. He's been working on this. He's got this series that he's got these really devoted fans from. We keep waiting for the next book. We keep waiting for the next book, and he keeps saying it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Well, that will be my ongoing, so I can wait for the next book. Enjoy all the ones that I've read so far, and be able to wait for the next one. So that would be. Those are my 3. Have to have them with me.
Fantastic answer. All right, guys. And as long as we're showing off, because this is also part of fandom, we were supposed to have Dave Dorman on. Dave Dorman, Star Wars.
Dave Dorman, great guy.
Star Wars, right there. There's some Batman hidden back there. So, yeah, I get it. And I'm with you, Elliot. Star Wars might not make the cut for me. Even though I love it, there are other things. It's funny. I'm kind of obsessed with Dune. And I don't know if it would make it or not. But ever since when I was younger and I read that first book, it made Star Wars lesser than for some reason. I don't know. There was something so rich about it. So I'm on a desert island. There's plenty of stuff to read then, because my God,
it's big and it's vast, and I fell in love with Dune later in life, but I literally just yesterday ran into, there's a vintage shop in I just moved, forgive me, I'm learning my vernacular, Andersonville, that they have a first print of Dune.
Ooh.
First edition.
Ooh.
And my brain just kind of melted. I was like, wait, what? Oh my God. And all of this stuff, man, it's so, we sit here and talking about like what's different now, why are things different now? The stuff that's coming out now isn't as nutrient dense for the most part, not all of it. And so we're more, I think part of the reason like people just kind of disconnect of things, it's Penny Dreadfuls had their place in literature in that time. They were, gruesome and escapism, and they're not Penny Dreadfuls per se. There's probably a different word for it. But the geek of our time is not as nutrient dense as the geek of our origin story. So it's just a different time.
All right, guys, let's wrap up. Where is the best place for people to interact with you? What social media do you prefer? And I'm also going to put this up, which already has it, but why don't you go ahead and say, I'll start with you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the Geeks. I'm not really
with
Geeks
a Z.
with a Z. Geeks with a Z. I'm really not active in social media. I just don't know why. I used to be
turned into a cesspool, Lil. It's turned into
that's
a
why
cesspool.
exactly. I just don't
Because you're on Twitter, that's why.
I just don't want to deal with it. So yeah, whatever it is. And I only just post when we have a show. Like most of the time, if you find me on YouTube, you can look up the Geeks on YouTube. We go live every Saturday night at 11 Eastern, which is crazy for me and my buddy Sean. But we have a great time. We have a great show with a lot of interaction. People jump on, talk with us, give us questions, comments, and stuff. So it's a lot of fun. That's the best place to find me.
Phenomenal. Tanya.
You can find me across social media at Ms. Tanya Todd. I'm MsTanyaTodd.com. I'm on FemOn Podcast. And Comic Slate is available wherever books are found, and you get a discount if you buy it through the publisher.
That's right. Yes. And you definitely want to pick that up. And look for volume 2 that has all these lovely people in it.
It'll be volume 3. We already have our.
Oh, that's
volume
right.
2
I should know that, right?
Yes.
Rob, you know I can't write. You know I
no.
don't write.
That's okay. I have other opportunities for you, so Make
you
sure we
can't do that either. This is a lil.
They have voice to text now. You can just talk into the computer and it'll type it for you.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
My Chicago accent sometimes comes out.
That's why there are editors.
Yes.
Trust me, you are fighting an uphill battle here. I have an anthology book that what's it been 5 years I've been trying to get you to write a chapter for.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I even offered to have him just get interviewed and I'd write it, and I can't get him to do that. So
Oh my God. The thing is, that story about it's like your origin story with comic books is so fantastic because it started with your mother. Like I want people to know about that it's not just a gender thing,
Yeah,
Right.
no, I totally get it. It's just that I'm not always big on the spotlight or the light being on me. Even though I do shows and stuff like that.
oh
but
my
it's not-
God,
I'm
he's
not-
then we can
saying
give
that.
you a
Elliot, you
pseudonym.
know him.
We could give you a secret identity.
This is his secret identity. Don't you know? He's in witness protection. Why do you think he's in Florida?
Yeah, there can't be another
What we
reason
need
to
to
go
do
to
is
Florida.
just interview him again and then hit the transcript.
I'll make it happen. I'll force him into it, Tanya. I have ways.
I'm sure I will.
Yep. See, and then Liz, why don't you tell people where to find you?
It's real easy. SphinxPR.com, SPHINX, because no one can spell it. SphinxPR.com.
Perfect. And for all your PR needs, and then Elliot.
I'm across all the socials at Elliot Serrano with 2 L's, 2 T's, and 2 R's. Find me on TikTok, though I'm going on at King of Geeks Chicago. And I'm looking for TikTok followers. I'm experimenting on TikTok. Yes, social media is a cesspool, but I am obsessed with figuring out trends. As you say, Liz, you got to listen to the patterns. You got to check those patterns.
Yep.
That's how you market. You got to show what the trends are, what's the vernacular, what's the language that's being used, and figure out a way to take your niche and express it in that particular area. So I'm doing a lot of freelance marketing for a couple folks. I'm a social media elf right now. I'm doing social media for a local Santa Claus, helping promote all their appearances. That's been a lot of fun. And so social media is my thing. So yes, please follow me on TikTok at King of Geeks Chicago.
Excellent. And look, it's all spelled out, except Dave Dorman's in there, so you can follow Dave as well. So there you go. Thank you guys so much. That's the end of HurriCon. I had a blast. I hope you guys had fun. And thank you, all of you, for being on.
And thank you, Rob, who has been absolutely epic helping putting this together.
Yes,
Yeah,
in
you're
3
welcome.
hours. 3 hours
Yes,
strong.
man,
How
3
about
hours.
that?
Okay, just as a little uncomfortable, I'm getting very uncomfortable with that. But all right.
Are you feeling kind of warm and tingly in certain areas, Rob? Is that what it is?
There's a cream for that.
Yeah. Wait, was that somebody upstairs said something very similar? All right, guys. Thank you so
All
much.
right,
Thank you for
take
everybody
care,
that watched.
stay safe.
And if you watch it later, once again, you can donate to beloved Asheville. Let's support people that got so hurt by this hurricane. If you do it through the Twitch channel, through our Twitch channel, 20% of the donations go to them. If you do it directly through Beloved Asheville, it goes right to Beloved Asheville. So at this point, go do that. And let's really support that. Once again, that is the end of HurriCon, the first version. I had fun. I think we're going to do this again, Liz.
Yeah, I think we have to.
And
I
Tanya,
have
you're going to be
ideas.
on stuff because you're one of our authors. Guess what? This was the beginning of that. So lots of opportunities coming.
Yeah,
And,
Let's
no,
hope there isn't a hurricane, though. Let's not need.
yeah, it won't be about the hurricane. No.
Yeah.
No, for sure. All right,
No.
you guys. Take care. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a geektastic night. Enough said.
Happy Halloween.